It's Monday morning, and the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment, is live in about 10 minutes from now. In the meantime, enjoy our house band, the AI Overlords, and I'll talk to you guys in just a few minutes.
At the country club here, they're passing notes in blue, talking party colors like they're overdue. The old brass on the wall keeps asking what went wrong, but the new crew smiles soft and hums a borrowed song. Now the table's turning slow with a polished patient glow. Everybody in the room feels the courage start to grow. Communism Kool-Aid, sipping by the poolside. Communism Kool-Aid, say it with a straight face. Voters in the cool shade, passing cups around the parade. Communism Kool-Aid, and nobody knows what to say. Hillary's by the phone with a careful, worried look, reading every headline like a line she didn't book. She sees the banner shift, she hears the easy cheer, and the whole old playbook starts to fog up in the rear. Now the table's turning slow with a polished, patient glow. Everybody in the room feels the courage start to grow. Communism Kool-Aid, sipping by the poolside. Communism Kool-Aid, say it with a straight face. Voters in the cool shade, passing cups around the parade. Communism Kool-Aid, and nobody knows what to say. The marina keeps on shining while the arguments roll on. One side calls it progress, one side says the game is gone, and the tide keeps washing in like it owns the whole boardwalk. Smile State magazine bright while the dinner circles tall. Communism Kool-Aid, sipping by the poolside. Communism Kool-Aid, say it with a straight face. Voters in the cool shade, passing cups around the parade. Communism Kool-Aid, and nobody knows what to say. Monday talk hit hard like a match in dry grass. Words crossed the room fast and nobody took it back. 3 months till the vote, still the air turned black. The names got thrown around and they came right back. You can shout all day, you can paint that fear, but the crowd still sees what's really near. Ballot box fire, ballot box fire. You can't scare truth down. Ballot box fire, ballot box fire. We see through the smoke now. Democrats got dragged with a label and a sneer. Socialist, communist, same old drum in our ear. But the street outside got its own reply. Moms at the crosswalk, kids with sharp eyes. You can sell that storm, you can sell that blame, but the same old trick has a tired frame. Ballot box fire, ballot box fire. You can't scare truth down. Ballot box fire, ballot box fire. We see through the smoke now. Let the panic talk, let the headlines spin. People know a mask when it's stretched too thin. Not every loud mouth tells the whole damn room. Not every dark word turns the day to doom. Whoa, 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 whoa. Ballot box fire, ballot box fire. You can't scare truth down. Ballot box fire, ballot box fire. We see through the smoke now. Monday talk fades out, but the vote still stands. Same old fear gets sold in the same old hands.
That is if you can provide yourself with food, and again, they're ice fishing because everything is frozen, and you're looking for fat in the beaver.
Yeah.
The beaver is the beaver is the most sought after.
It is.
Ryan, do you think you could eat beaver? It's fat and then it's meat.
It made them all sick, though. They all got sick after it.
Well, you can't eat diseased animals.
Oh, God.
What about a moose?
Yeah, I don't know anything about this show,
Okay.
Nina, but you're really funny.
Okay.
You are a really funny gal.
That was Good Day Detroit. I don't know how recent that clip was. I found it over the weekend when I was prepping for the show, and it just absolutely killed me. What's funny about it is the fact that the woman anchor, the host on the show, clearly had like no idea what it was that she was saying. She just had no.
Provide yourself with
She had
food.
no clue.
And again,
Right.
they're ice fishing because everything is frozen,
right.
and you're looking for fat in the beaver.
Yeah.
The beaver is the beaver is the most sought after.
It is.
Yeah. That's right.
Ryan, do you think you could eat beaver? It's fat and then it's meat.
Well, Well, and the more I thought about it too, it's like how many euphemisms now are lost on the younger generations that don't even realize that what that terminology has typically meant in terms of the slang use of the word beaver. Welcome to the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. Certainly not the way that I had intended on starting the show this morning, but I figured we'd kick things off on a lighter note. We have producer Devin with us this morning. All right, so I guess I'll use you as the youngin between the two of us. Are you familiar with the euphemism that they were laughing about in that Good Day Detroit clip?
I do not believe I am.
Okay, see, case in point. Thank you very much. I'll tell you what, once we're done with the show, I'll explain it to you. I'm not going to do it now.
It's probably smart.
Yeah, it's probably, it's about as R-rated as the show is going to get. We'll just put it that way. But that's the point that I was trying to make, is that I think for a lot of individuals, they're completely unaware of why the dudes on the show were as laughing as hard as they were. Although it is moments like this that has the potential to let a new generation in on these fun euphemisms that we used to use as we were growing up. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. I'm glad you're with the show this morning. We have lots to discuss from over the weekend. Andrew Langer, the president of the Institute for Liberty, he'll be joining us at 6:30 this morning. A lot of Democrat socialists distancing themselves from the DSA label. My guess is, and I'll talk about this with Andrew, is that the polling on the left when it comes to Democrat Socialists of America is not good. And that the Democrat establishment is fully aware they need to distance themselves as far from the label as possible, also while not disenfranchising those radical leftist communists within their party because they need them. So we have some audio examples to share. Ro Khanna, Hakeem Jeffries. So that'll be coming up within the first hour of the show. Further fallout and controversy over the James O'Keefe voter vouching video from last week's primaries. And so we'll dive further into that issue. And now you have the state of Minnesota looking into investigating James O'Keefe for doing what he did. Yeah, I'll save the rest of the commentary coming up after 7 o'clock. A bizarre act of vandalism. I have a hard time even calling it that. But a Blaine City councilwoman awoke to her vehicle being covered in photocopies of photographs of middle fingers taped all over her car. So we'll talk about that right around 7:30. Today, and I have a lot of thoughts on this particular story, and also questions of how we handle it. I understand the concern and the vandalism aspect of it, but at the same time, what a stupid juvenile thing to do. And I want to get into sort of the mentality of a group of people, because it is a group of people. They were caught. They had their faces all covered up, but they were caught on, I believe, a closed circuit camera, might have been a Ring doorbell, in the act of Scotch taping all these photographs on Leslie Larson's car. It's just it's a stupid thing to do. So I don't know whether or not we should go the route of just relentlessly mocking them, or to bring about a level of concern, which is the way that this is going so far. So we'll talk about that at 7:30. Also, the DNC platform officially adopts an anti-ICE stance. So Ken Martin, at a recent DNC gathering, laid this out. So we'll have details along with further commentary over ICE going and surveilling those on the street insurrectionists as part of Operation Metro Surge. So there's a lot of ground to cover today, on top of a handful of other stories that we'll be diving into throughout the show today. As always, if you want to leave a blast, you can do so at 612-584-4565. Again, that's 612-584-4565. And if you want to email the show at any point, john.justice@americanexperiment.org. And one last item of note of business. Remember, you can watch the show live at MN Think Tank Also on Facebook and YouTube at Center of the American Experiments pages. My personal pages have links there as well. Jon, John Justice. You can find it there. And all of the podcasts are available once the show wraps up on the Mixlr app, which you can download for free and listen to the show, and across all major podcast platforms, along with those outlets that I just mentioned where you can watch a replay of the show if you miss any portion of our being live Monday through Friday, 6 until 9 a.m.
Move over, Scott. I'm going with the Gary Kahn 11. This message is to all of the quote-unquote pro-life voters out there who will not vote for Michelle Tafoya or any other moderate candidate because they will only vote for pro-life candidates. Well, you're going to get elected a Democrat who's going to have abortion all the way up until the baby is born. So here's where my amp goes up to 11, but everyone else only goes to 10. When you get to Judgment Day, you're going to face all those babies between 13 weeks and 39 weeks that were aborted, and they're going to ask you, why didn't you save me? And you're going to say, because I only vote for pro-life candidates. And then Jesus will spend the next 4 hours reading to you about that's not what he said in the Bible.
Well, thank you for that, Gary. Obviously, had some very pointed words to share as he sent that on Friday at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, in the middle of when my family was enjoying tasty Costco pizza while I was enjoying my very healthy meal courtesy of the NutraWave program, which we'll talk about here in just a few minutes on the show. I want to share with you some tragic news that I woke up to this morning. Actress Hayden Panettiere, best known for her roles on Nashville and the NBC drama Heroes, she has passed away at age 36. Yeah, I was stunned to see this morning. A representative for the actress confirmed the news on Sunday in a statement delivered first to ABC News, saying, and doing that thing with my fingers, it is with profound sadness that we share the tragic passing of our beloved Hayden. She was an incredible light and a force of nature who brought an immeasurable love and joy to all who knew her and the millions who watched her on screen. Now, Panettiere apparently had been very open in recent years about her history of substance abuse and her battle with postpartum depression, and had just published a memoir titled This Is Me, A Reckoning. This came out in May, and along with this memoir, she had gone on a very popular podcast discussing her new book with Jay Shetty. I know the individual. I've never listened to the pod. I just know his face from seeing clips online, and I believe we've actually played some clips of this podcaster before. But Hayden Panettiere was on this podcast just 3 months ago and had told just an incredibly tragic story about an experience that she had early on in her career as an actress. So here's a portion of what she had to say on the Jay Shetty pod here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
You write about a moment in your career where a friend of yours takes you onto a boat. You're led to a room which has an older man in it, and then basically told to perform sexual acts, and
Oh yeah, perspective completely shifted, and I realized that I was in danger. But by the time I'd realized I was in danger, I was quite literally out to sea. And it was that moment shook me and was shocking. And I was quite literally walked down, and I had been having a great time. There was no hints of anything like that happening. So it took me, I was shocked. It took me by surprise. And it was led by somebody that I had grown to trust and see as a protector and somebody who had my back. And to be walked down, down the stairs, and it was as like a surprise, presented as though it was like a surprise. And it was this very small room, and she physically put me in the bed next to this undressed man who was very famous and had his hands like this, like this was just an average day for him. This is something that happens all the time. And I waited for her to leave, and I I mean, that lion in me, that fire in me, that my hair stood on end, and I became ferocious. I was like, this is not happening. But I had nowhere to hide, and I bolted, and I hid wherever I could think of to hide on a boat. There was no jumping off and swimming away, and there was nobody who was going to, I realized that there was nobody who was going to be empathetic to my situation, that this was nothing new to them.
I'm personally curious to hear about whether or not Hayden Panettiere followed up that horrific story with sort of what happened next. That's what I would be curious to know, and how did it impact her moving forward as an actress. But again, that was on a recent pod 3 months ago. This was being shared online in the wake of her passing. And, you know, there are some individuals online looking for the sensationalism of it all, and basically saying, you know, 3 months ago she exposed this and now she's dead. And I'm certainly not going there. She apparently had a history of substance abuse and postpartum depression, which she also spoke about on this podcast. Her younger brother, Jansen, had passed away in 2023 due to an enlarged heart and aortic valve complications. Just something near and dear to my heart. He was only 28 years old. So far, no cause of death has been reported of the actress, and I'm sure that we'll find out soon enough what has happened. So, just always sad to see somebody at this age, especially somebody well known. I mean, obviously, people pass away all the time. Here's an individual, though, that was beloved by her fans on these particular shows. I watched the beginning. I think I watched the first season of Heroes, and then I pitched off. I never watched Nashville. But I wanted to take this and make a larger point as we get into some of the other issues on the show this morning. Assuming this is all true in what she laid out in this podcast. You know, it's vile, it's evil, it's depraved. And it allegedly happened within the circles of societal influence. You know, according to what she said, this was a prominent actor who was a part of her agent bringing her to them. I mean, this is horrible. Probably an individual that most people know, you know, and if somebody is capable of this type of behavior, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, I just want to drive home a point. If someone is capable of this type of behavior, I mean, we're talking mainstream individuals that are respected and beloved by a large group of people within society, then the politics that we talk about on the show on a daily basis that we will dive into today, the politics of the left, the rise of communism being masked by this Democrat socialism, and really, and I'm going to start moving down this road. I mean, really what we're talking about is this totalitarianism of what these individuals are proposing. You have the various sort of degrees in which these people are involved. You have the people at the very top that know exactly what they're doing and attempting to go and undermine the foundation of what makes America great, right on down to the ignorant masses and fools that are out there winning local city council seats or then running for larger seats up the line, who end up becoming true believers. And I'll have an example of this here in just a moment. But when you have, like I said, actors or actresses capable of this type of behavior, who are well known and could lose all of what they've worked so hard to build, to just simply go and appeal to their own base evils and desires, then when it comes to politics, it's not nearly as off-putting. When it comes to radical leftist, Democrat, socialist, Marxist ideologies, you know, in its very least, it gets supported in public. And again, we're talking about individuals that are already of low moral standing. So at the very least, these policies get supported, and at the worst, they're championed as the way that America should be. You know, it all serves as examples of the fight that we're up against here in the United States as we look towards not so much, you know, our futures, like for myself, but also, you know, the future of my sons, the future of your children, you know, my extended family members, nieces and nephews. What kind of country are we going to be leaving behind for them if we don't tackle and deal with these very dangerous radicals across the board, whether it's moral depravity, right on through the way that we conduct ourselves via politics. 612-584-4565. That's the number if you want to leave us a blast this morning at any point throughout the show this morning. Again, you can email john.justice@americanexperiment.org. Coming up, a bit of good news. A judge has cleared the way for the Trump administration to end temporary protected status for Somalis. I'll give you an update on that story. And speaking of the corrupt and morally bankrupt individuals that I was just referencing, a socialist lawmaker went viral over the weekend for speaking out in public saying that shoplifting is a biological need. So I'll share that audio with you coming up in just a moment on the show. And for those of you out there that look in the mirror and you're not happy with what you see, you're not feeling healthy, just going about and doing your daily routine becomes exhausting. You know you need to lose the weight, and you've probably tried before only to lose the weight and then gain even more back when you were done with your diet. Listen, that all stops today. NutriWave, NutriWave.us is the solution to that problem. It solved it for me. I've lost now 25 pounds on the program. I lost 22 pounds on the first round. I kept the weight off after I stopped the diet and decided, you know what, I'm going to do another round of NutriWave to get to the weight that I'm supposed to be for somebody my, height and size. And I'm on my way right now. I cannot say enough good things about this program, but don't just take my word for it. 31,000 people across the metro, they've tried everything else, and NutriWave is where they ended up getting their life back. Right now, you can get an almost $300 value in a Truth metabolic session and a red light therapy session, absolutely free, by simply calling and finding out what the program is all about. Trust me, you will not be disappointed. The number to call is 952-260-1965. That's 952-260-1965. Mention the word strike and receive that free almost $300 value for just finding out the program put together by Dr. Bob at NutriWave. Again, 952-260-1965. There's no shots. There's no pills. You eat the food that you want to eat, and it's fantastic food too. I love this diet. And you get the results that you're looking for. NutriWave, trust me, there's nothing else like it. Results vary, and NutriWave is not a medical treatment. Be sure to consult your physician before starting any weight loss program.
If you would like to support the John Justice Show, become an advertiser. Competitive rates for both personal endorsements and standard ads are available. For more details, email john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
It's John Justice, and after discovering Mini Leaf's night gummies, it's no longer a challenge getting a restful night's sleep. At minileaf.com, you'll see their fantastic line of products like delicious chocolates, pain creams, and fun gummies. But for me, it's Mini Leaf's night gummies with their all-natural ingredients that have been an absolute game changer. You take one right before bed and wake up feeling rejuvenated. Head on over to MINNELEAF.com. That's minileaf.com and get your sleep back on track.
And now, here's commentary on the latest issues facing Minnesotans from the hosts, policy fellows, and guests of American Experiment. For more content, head on over to the center of the AmericanExperiment.org.
We break it down piece by piece again at AmericanExperiment.org. But for example, when the FBI first raided Feeding Your Future's offices, she, that week, was calling for protected status for immigrants from El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, and Nicaragua. When the Department of Justice indicted Amy Bach and 46 others, which was the largest fraud indictment in Minnesota history at the time, she was releasing a statement on resuming full immigrant visa services in Havana. And when Amy Bach was found guilty, she was calling on Trump to reverse the illegal firing of FTC commissioners.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low-crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high-crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Between January 20th, 2022, so that was when the FBI first raided Feeding Our Futures offices. Between then and then December 31st, 2025, right before she launched her campaign for governor, Amy Klobuchar issued over 1,000 press releases, 1,085, and not a single one of them addressed the Minnesota fraud scandal.
If you would like to support the John Justice Show, become an advertiser. For more details, email john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
It's John Justice, and be honest, your old self would be disappointed in you right now. That was certainly the case for me. And then I found the NutraWave program. You used to own the room, now you don't anymore. Let's change that starting right now. With no pills and no shots, NutraWave, over 13 years, has helped thousands of men and women lose the weight and keep it off for good. I've lost 25 pounds on this amazing program, and I cannot say enough good things about NutraWave. It all starts with a free Truth metabolic scan plus a free red light therapy session. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain except all the weight. Spots are limited and they go fast. Call today at 952-260-1965. Mention the word strike. Again, 952-260-1965 and mention the word strike, and that almost $300 value is yours absolutely free. No pills, no shots. NutraWave at NutriWave.us. Proud sponsor here of the John Justice Show. Results may vary.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
It's the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment. If you want to leave us a comment at any point throughout the broadcast, you can do that. We call it the Blaster Line. Blast at us. Leave us a blast to 612-584-4565, and you can email john.justice@americanexperiment.org. We were just talking a moment ago about actress Hayden Panettiere, found deceased over the weekend, no cause of death, even though she'd been very public dealing with substance abuse issues and postpartum depression, recently appearing on a podcast talking about alleged abuse early on in her actress career. Just an incredibly tragic story. I wanted to spike this in, though, just speaking with regard to substance abuse. And it's an article from the Daily Wire that I've been holding on to a bit that I found interesting nonetheless. Figures released last week by the Federal National Survey on Drug Use and Health show that in 2025, more Americans are now using marijuana on a daily basis or near daily basis than either cigarettes or alcohol. So you had about 21.4 million daily or near daily marijuana users. That stood above the 19.9 million daily or near daily cigarette users at 17.2 million. I'm actually surprised that number is as high as it is. I'm always surprised when I see people smoking in public, not from a judgmental standpoint, but just you just don't see people smoking in public as often anymore. The 2025 numbers mark the first time on record that marijuana has ranked as the most common daily use substance among the three. An overview of the consumer trends going back to April noted that daily cannabis users had already surpassed drinkers in early data sets, and that the interest in cutting back on alcohol has grown, especially among younger adults. The surveys are referenced in that discussion found that many people viewing cannabis as less harmful in some situations, which isn't a surprise given how much it has been the amount of states that have adopted legal marijuana, even beyond medicinal marijuana. Among people ages 12 to 17, past month use of illicit drugs or alcohol fell to 9.5%, as past year use of nicotine products and alcohol in that age group stood at 20%. Lastly, they talk about cocaine, of all things. The past year, cocaine use was 1.7 among people 12 and older, while heroin use in the same age group in the past year was 0.2%. Meth over the course of the past year registered at 0.9%. Misuse of prescription psychotherapeutics in the past year was 4.4%. Fewer young people, right, consuming alcohol. Older people have experienced, decades of alcohol warnings. I think that's actually had a huge impact. On top of the fact that there's this need and desire in society to escape societal tensions, which I think plays into all of this as well. Listen, the attention alone surrounding the legalization of marijuana across the country, and even here in Minnesota, it almost acts like an advertising campaign for these products. I think it all comes down to moderation, making sure that you're using the products at the appropriate age, and you're moderating just like you do anything else. And older people who experimented with marijuana at a younger age, they're more likely to present it as being, normalized, because of how, older generations use this when they were younger. And then there's sort of this gap as you get older where you kind of turn away from it because it was illegal. But now we've moved towards, it being legal in all of these states. And it doesn't surprise me. We already saw a downward trend of alcohol use among young people. So to see individuals consuming, these types of products, it doesn't shock me in the least bit. All right, let's go here before we talk with Andrew Langer, president of the Institute for Liberty. A federal judge in Massachusetts cleared the way for the Trump administration to strip temporary protected status from some 1,100 Somalis living in the United States. The ruling from the U.S. District Judge in Boston came down late on Friday, and this is months after 4 Somali TPS holders and 2 advocacy groups filed a lawsuit back in March trying to stop the Department of Homeland Security from terminating the TPS designation for Somalis. The lawsuit temporarily blocked the DHS from moving forward with the termination while legal challenges are underway. The court also acknowledged on Friday that the life-altering consequences of this decision for the affected Somali TPS beneficiaries as it cleared the way for the Trump administration to move forward with its plan to end Somalia's temporary protected status. If the government wishes to remove or detain Somali people who previously held TPS, temporary protected status, those enforcement actions will be subject to the protections of the Due Process Clause. This is according to the judge in their ruling. The court is aware of no precedent that would allow it to find a protected liberty interest in being free. Lost my stape here. In being free from the prospect of immigration enforcement. So there we go. The order also pushed back on the plaintiff's accusation that President Donald Trump and his administration made statements that were racially overt and directly targeting the Somali people, writing that though plaintiffs lay out a strong case for why the at-issue statements were racist, the court cannot discern a path to concluding that plaintiffs will succeed on the merits of this claim, wrote the judge, citing a previous 2026 Supreme Court decision which included constitutional race discrimination claims. TPS allows people from a select list of countries to live and work in the United States when it's unsafe for them to return to their own country due to ongoing dangerous conditions such as war or a natural disaster. So there's going to be a constant theme on the show this morning, and that constant theme on the show is individuals and what interest they are fighting for. Right. Is it the interests of the legal American people, or is it the interests of the leftist radicals? And this is a really good example of that. Here, the individuals who don't want to see the temporary protected status stripped, they have the interests of the radical left. And this isn't going to have a major impact here on the United States of America. Some 1,100 Somalis living in the United States that should go back to their host country because the temporary protected status no longer applies to them. It's not going to have any sort of major ramifications on voting or policy or anything like that. But it doesn't matter. It's the precedent here that matters. These programs should have ended a long time ago. The left fights for it because keeping temporary protected status in place bolsters their arguments relating to illegal immigration and immigration, those that are here in the country that they believe who immigrated here, they can capitalize to win future elections. That's why they fight so hard. Again, the interest of the radical leftists, as opposed to what the Trump administration is trying to do, and that is make sure that we protect the interests of the American citizens. And this is something that we'll certainly dive into in further detail coming up after 8 o'clock this morning when we begin to discuss the DNC officially adopting an anti-ICE platform here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. And with that, we welcome into the show, as we do every single Monday, president of the Institute for Liberty and friend of yours and friend of mine, Andrew Langer. Good morning, Andrew. How are we doing this morning?
You know, I'm trying to be as friendly as possible to as many people as possible, John.
I want to get into a couple of things with you, and I know you have some items that you want to discuss this morning. I want to talk about over the weekend on some of the weekend talk shows. You see a handful of Democrats that are distancing themselves from the DSA label. I have audio from Ro Khanna and Hakeem Jeffries to share. So I definitely want to dive into that. Oh, and that Bizarro clip, and I know you have comments about AOC, but the Bizarro clip that she had over the weekend when she's talking about men, we'll get into it further later, but this is the clip that I'm referring to.
They ain't me and they can't ever be me.
They hate me because they ain't me and they can never be me. She posts in an incredibly up close and awkward
They hate me because
selfie
they ain't me and they
video.
can't ever be me.
John,
Such a weirdo.
It's funny because obviously AOC representing the Bronx and claiming to have been from the Bronx. You know, I grew up probably a half hour from where AOC grew up in Yorktown Heights, which is in Upper Westchester County, a very Tony suburb of New York City. And I went to high school with a lot of suburban kids who really wanted to cosplay as though they were from the boogie down Bronx. And you know, it never quite works. You know, but this is just it, right? This is not AOC. There is no authentic AOC or Sandy,
No.
as I guess she was known in high school. But as I said to you, she is definitely running. She is definitely running for president. I don't put any stock in the idea that she is that she's got any chance of getting the nomination. But right now, apparently, she's at 20%. What I do appreciate, I don't know if you saw it over the weekend, but Hunter Biden was saying some very nice things about her, and I could see Hunter Biden
don't will it into existence, Andrew Langer.
I'm willing it into existence. Hunter Biden taking on the Dick Cheney mantle of the Democratic Party, being the old man of the Democratic Party, and I see an AOC Hunter Biden ticket in 2028.
Well, you know, it's funny because on the one hand, I go, yes, you know, will it into existence. But on the other hand, I go, no, because there are too many individuals out there that would actually think that that is a viable duo and would be more than happy to go and support them in their efforts.
Here's the reality, right? The reality is that regardless of who the Democrats have as their nominee in 2028, the Democrats are going to still have to contend with this DSA problem. And they're going to have to contend with the DSA problem, pulling them leftward. And so it doesn't matter really at the end of the day if it's AOC or if it's Pete Buttigieg or if it's Gavin Newsom or if it's whomever. The Democrats are not going to nominate a JFK. They're not going to ever nominate a Bill Clinton again, at least not for a very long time. And so, you know, what we're going to see is a stereotypical milk toasty, weak-minded, you know, the dark side of the force preys on the weak-minded, weak-minded Democrat who will be pulled in all kinds of directions. And listen, case in point, and this is not me making some kind of joke about Joe Biden's mental infirmities. Let's assume for a moment that Joe Biden was still the Joe Biden of old. Nevertheless, he was still going to be pulled. And there are, you know, we're replete with examples of where Joe Biden's administration went much further than Barack Obama's, which went much further than Bill Clinton's, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because that's where the Democrats are going.
Well, let's keep it with this theme. Democrat Socialists of America, Woke 1 and 2, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. According to the article that I have here in front of me, Andrew Langer, AOC handed her party a problem as it spent Sunday morning refusing to answer when she laughed off a slate of far-left policy positions as being excesses of woke number one. Two of the biggest Sunday shows put AOC's remark to Democrat guests as a loyalty test, and both guests had near identical answers. So you had NBC's Kristen Welker and CNN's Jake Tapper. Each raised it on Meet the Press and State of the Union. So we'll start off here. I have the clip from both of these shows. This is Welker with Representative Ro Khanna directly quoting AOC and asking whether or not he agreed. Here's his answer.
She said, woke one was crazy, effectively suggesting some progressive views just went too far in the 2020s. Do you agree with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that woke one was crazy?
Well, I don't know what these labels mean. I'll tell you what I've always stood for. I have never been for defunding police. Our district in Silicon Valley is one of the safest districts in the country. We've actually had more police in San Jose and Fremont. But I believe in police reform so people aren't racially profiled.
Well, and with that, let me go ahead because the comments are incredibly similar, Andrew Langer. Let me go ahead and play the clip with Jake Tapper and CNN talking with Governor Wes Moore.
Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez seems to have acknowledged the overreach of the 2020 era of progressivism last week. She said, quote, woke one was crazy. Woke 1.0 was crazy. You were asked about that. You said you didn't know what woke one was. So I've been trying to figure out how to ask this question. There's no official definition. I think woke one generally refers to what are now viewed as excesses of the progressive movement, defund the police, a far left view of the world that views the world in terms of only oppressor and oppressee, language policing, holiday policing, cancel culture, positions that turned off a lot of middle-of-the-road voters. What is your take on that era, even if that wasn't part of how you ran or thought or governed? And what does the Democratic Party need to do if they hope to win outside of blue states and congressional districts?
Well, it's funny. It's true. I said I don't know what woke one is, but frankly, I don't know what woke two or woke three is either.
You know, first off, and I want to get your thoughts, but, you know, of course they can't define it because it's all a shifting target in terms of whatever agenda they have in front of them. But what are your thoughts on what the Democrats are saying regarding these comments from AOC?
Listen, let me just go here and say I'm not surprised that Wes Moore doesn't know what woke 1, 2, or 3 is. Wes Moore is entirely a blank slate. He is a tabula rasa. He is someone who is, we know very little about him, and what we do know is a mytho-history that is proffered by Wes Moore. He's a good-looking gent with a very friendly smile and absolutely out of his depth when it comes to governance. And so, I'll take him at his word that he doesn't know what those things mean, because Wes Moore is not a smart guy, and thus he actually is probably the front runner for the Democratic nomination going into 2028. But listen, this is the strategy. It's so funny. My daughter and I chuckle over the parody of Tucker Carlson that Saturday Night Live had. That's the rule. That's the goal now. This is the goal. The goal is for some of these more articulate Democrats to try to paint themselves as being blue dog Democrats, or whatever the modern version of the blue dog Democrat is, to appear moderate so that they can push themselves, paint themselves in a way that makes them electable on a national scale. The reality is, each party is counting on the other party to be as extreme as possible. And I think the party should be measured by who is actually willing to go out on the mat and condemn folks when they go crazy. And I think Republicans are winning on that score. I know folks are going to sort of sit there and gag and snort because, the Republicans have been reluctant, shall we say, to criticize Donald Trump. But I think we are looking now past Donald Trump And as we look past Donald Trump, folks are now becoming much, much more willing to criticize folks like J.D. Vance for their positions that seem to be out of step with, what the Republicans have said over many, many years.
Yeah, I want to talk about that coming up here on the show as we continue our discussion with Andrew Langer, the president of the Institute for Liberty, here on the John Justice Show. Before we do that, because I have a clip from Hakeem Jeffries from over the weekend along a similar lines, talking about the DSA agenda. But a question rolled in from friend of the show, Eric, to the blaster line for you, Andrew.
Hey, John, question for Andrew. Did Joe Biden kill debates forever? I know that during the last primary season, we didn't see a whole lot of them, especially in some of the bigger races. I'm just curious, are they really a dead thing even for the generals? I get it, maybe not for the primaries, but for general elections, did Joe really kill them forever?
What are your thoughts on that? And I'll share my my hot take from last week that everybody hated regarding debates. But what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think that Joe Biden in that June 27, 2024 debate had a tangible impact on Democrats debating moving forward?
Well, listen, I think the movement is that unless the front-running candidate sees a merit in it, whoever the front-running candidate in a race is going to eschew the debates, and that's a real shame, because voters need to actually see two candidates up on a debate stage side by side, especially the small numbers of truly undecided or truly independent voters out there. They need to see these candidates up there side by side. But once the precedent was set that you could reject debating, that will become more widespread as politics moves forward.
Well, and I had mentioned last week, and again, this was an incredibly unpopular take, but, in my view, debates have become increasingly irrelevant. I agree with you that having two candidates up on stage with opposing views going back and forth, it's important, especially for the number of individuals that aren't paying close attention. And that was certainly the case of what happened with that 2024 June debate with Joe Biden. The majority of the country saw what most of us had already seen, right, for years, but it had been hidden. But that being said, with the ability now for candidates to put out their views and opinions, at any moment in any given day on any social media platform, and we know pretty much everything that we need to know about these candidates that we would in the past typically have found during debates. So I've found them to become increasingly irrelevant from that standpoint, because for the people paying attention, we're not really learning anything new from a debate.
Well, I mean, likewise, I don't think there's not much, that can be learned from sort of prepackaged presses. I think, part of the problem is that the leftist press killed the modern debate, right? And let's put blame where it needs to be, which is that when you have a debate and you have debate moderators who are so clearly slanted for one side or the other, it makes it very hard, that itself becomes the story at the end of the day. Bad moderators, bad judging. I think at some point we need to return to, maybe it doesn't have to be hour and a half debates. Maybe it's a series of debates or discussions where the candidates, because I think there's something to be said. It's not just about the two candidates standing up there, but watching a candidate have to think on their feet, I think is a very, very valuable exercise in a way that's different than just having them put out prepackaged position papers. But that's just me.
Yeah, well, listen, hence why everybody hated my hot take last week.
There you go.
Because those are really relevant, cogent points. We kind of split the difference at some point. I think the audience and I agreed that, maybe we just do it for presidential, vice presidential, maybe governor's races, and we just abandon all the other ones. But I'm saying that half-heartedly, by the way.
Listen, let's take a cue from what nobody on radio does anymore, right? Which is not just the phone call. The live phone call on the air, but the unscreened phone call. How about just candidates take unscreened phone calls, for a while? Listen, you don't even have to do a debate. Just have the candidates sit in a radio studio or a podcast studio and take unscreened phone calls for an hour and see how they react to that.
It's still some of the most entertaining audio ever. Not a politician, but certainly acted like one when Alec Baldwin was hosting that radio show a number of years ago and just fumbled his way just through it. It was one, as a host myself, it was amazing to listen to.
Not everybody can do what you do, John, and that's right. The thing. That's why, listen, just a bit of nostalgia. That's why I always loved. There was a guy talk show called the Don and Mike Show, syndicated across the country, and Don Geronimo would take unscreened phone calls. Like, I mean, listen, we all get it. You have to have a call screener, but when he would just hit the button and go to the phones, that was always so entertaining.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries drew a sharp distinction on Sunday, getting back to what we were just discussing with Andrew Langer, president of the Institute for Liberty. He drew a sharp distinction between the Democrat Party and the agenda of the Democrat Socialists of America in this clip here.
Do Democratic Socialists belong in the Democratic Party, Leader Jeffries?
Well, what I can say is that I do not support defunding the police. I do not support open borders. I do not support abolishing the Senate. We're focused on actually solving problems that hardworking American taxpayers want us to solve, which is to lower the high cost of living in a situation where life is far too expensive in this country. That's the Democratic agenda. That's what House Democrats are fighting to achieve.
Do you think, though, that there is room in the Democratic Party under the tent of the Democratic Party for Democratic Socialists? Is it big enough?
Well, listen, I don't support the DSA agenda as has been articulated by the DSA itself. Now, you're going to have individual members.
Now, Andrew Langer, I can only assume that within the DNC, the polling on Democrat Socialists of America has got to be bad. If they're out there pushing back against it so quickly after it's begun to dominate the headlines, or what are your thoughts?
I think that's probably true, though. I think you need to put that particular clip in the vault, and I think for me, I'm trying to sit here and noodle through how long is it going to be, how many election cycles will it be before Hakeem Jeffries essentially it tries to ignore that clip ever exists, right? How long will it take Hakeem Jeffries to embrace every aspect of this? Because I'm going to say, let's say, when Speaker Jeffries hits his 20th year as Speaker, and I know he won't be Speaker for 20 years, maybe it'll come in turns. But let's say by 2046. When Hakeem Jeffries is in whatever term he's in the House, and he has embraced all of this part of the Democratic Socialist agenda, and they have worked tirelessly to remake the Supreme Court, and they're talking about getting rid of the Senate or whatever, right? Because here's the thing, guys. We dismiss it now out of hand, but the Democrats are telling you where they want to take it. And listen, I'll say it with Republicans too. Because again, I know we're going to come back to this, but I am seeing very disturbing things on our side of the aisle. I just, we need to be much stronger about warning about them.
Well, let's get into a bit of that in the closing minutes of our conversation, Andrew Langer. I know you were filling in for our fellow friend, talk show host Tony Katz recently, and you had some concerns regarding J.D. Vance, socialism, Hamilton, Milton Friedman. So give us the tight version here.
Yeah, let me distill it down, because J.D. Vance was on TV on Thursday talking about young people and socialism, right? Democratic socialists and why young people are attracted to it. And he said, talking about his agenda and about living with dignity and all kinds of things, essentially talking about this utopian world. And it is a follow-on to an interview that he did with Michael Knowles about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, in which he essentially declared that Republicans are beyond Milton Friedman, that the Milton Friedman laissez-faire approach to governance, especially economic governance, is gone, and that we are all Hamiltonians now. And I got a real problem with that from the jump, which is to say that, Hamilton was a central government monarchist. And I don't understand what this modern fetishization is, right? Or why J.D. Vance is holding up as a model the guy who has become the darling of the Lin-Manuel Miranda progressive set. That, you know, the greatest prosperity that we've had in this country came because we had a brave politician, Ronald Reagan, who said, you know something, there's this really smart approach to the relationship between government and the economy by this economist, Milton Friedman. Maybe we should do some of that. And it got us prosperity and it got us security. And yet you've got J.D. Vance, who has not always, I'll just say this, has not always been a Republican, you know, essentially making himself the avatar for all things conservative Republican. And I'm sorry, Hamilton was not a Republican in the small sense of the word. He was not a believer in the republic, as it were. And essentially, it's not just trashing Milton Friedman, but by extension, the Jeffersonian and Madisonian ideas that we all hold dear. You know, I believe in the approach to government that Jefferson and Madison articulated. I don't believe in the approach to government that Hamilton articulated. And so, no, the Republican Party is not the party of Hamilton. It is the party that espouses the Jeffersonian, Madisonian ideals.
So it obviously goes much deeper than that, but I want to share with you a little anecdote about this, because when you sent me, Andrew and I exchanged, emails back and forth, sort of, this is where I'm going to go, and this is what's on Andrew's mind, and I love when Andrew brings the topics here, because this is what he's most interested in, it's going to be most passionate about. But it's funny, when you sent this to me, my mind immediately went to Lin-Manuel Miranda and the play, over the actual individual. So again, not to simplify it, but how much of it is just because of the past, not so much now, but the overwhelming popularity of that play. Again, I don't mean to simplify it, but I just wonder how much of that plays into it.
Here's the thing that I get to, because in this clip that J.D. Vance is speaking with Michael Knowles, he's talking about essentially the Hamiltonian centralized government approach to the relationship between the economy and the people, in which he's talking about things like the living wage and working with dignity and taking time off and government creating conditions where people can start a family. And I'm like, this really sounds like socialist utopia nonsense to me. That this is not the role of government to sort of engage in these things. And so I posited on the air, is this J.D. Vance's way of trying to create his own version of Democrats, so DSA light, right? Building on the Democrat, liberal, progressive popularity of Hamilton. And I don't have an answer to that. I don't know if J.D. Vance has seen Hamilton. I don't know if he is tracking with how popular that was. It would not surprise me if that were the case. But the other part of this point is, John, we have to be talking about this. We have to be talking about, as Republicans or as conservatives, this different philosophical approach of the relationship between government and the people, and government and the economy, because we lose something massive if we are either trying to create DSA light on our end, as the Democrats, frankly, we can create the contrast. I don't believe that Hakeem Jeffries can resist the urges of AOC, or AOC can resist the urges of whoever the DSA folks are who come to power. But on the other hand, as conservatives or libertarians or as Republicans, we can resist the urge to bring us down the Hamiltonian path, as opposed to the Jeffersonian or Madisonian path.
Well, and to your point, as we wrap this up, I completely agree, because the reality is we cannot put any daylight there to offer in any level of what the Democrat socialists are proposing. And the fear would be that you end up with a conservative, in the White House in a position of power, but they have this mentality wherein it may lean into, as you mentioned, some of those Democrat socialist issues, and maybe they won't sign off on them, but the next Democrat certainly would. And you've established a baseline there where we've put us on a path towards disaster. So you're right. I think, there's a mentality there of we don't want to disparage the up and coming conservative rock stars within the Republican Party, but at the same time, we cannot do a disservice to ourselves if those individuals show an inkling towards a pathway of destruction.
The bedrock principle of this movement, our movement, conservative, libertarian, as Grover Norquist said, this is the Leave Us Alone coalition. That's the core, right? And if we cannot articulate why freedom is better than government, why empowering people to act on their own behalf is better than having government do it for you, then we are in far worse shape than we've ever been. And we have to explain and train our candidates into how to deliver that message that freedom is better than government.
Andrew Langer, as always, thank you so much for the time this morning. What would you like the listeners to check out when they're done listening to my show this morning?
Special 200th episode of my lunch hour podcast. Thank you.
Congrats.
200 episodes, weekly public policy podcast. This is our music show. Me, Jerry Rogers from Real Clear Policy, Real Clear Health, Tim Lee from the Center for Individual Freedom, answering such thorny and difficult questions as were the Beatles better before or after they had facial hair? Which iteration of the Rolling Stones was better? And most importantly, we do a great tribute to the late, great Casey Kasem. So tune in
nice.
At the Lunch Hour Pod. Yes, sir.
Andrew Langer, I look forward to the next time you and I have a chance to chat. And thank you so much for the time this morning, my friend.
Thanks, man. Have a good week.
We're going to get to, as a matter of fact, let me go ahead and do it now. We're going to get to a couple of blasts that have rolled in to the blaster line at 612-584-4565. And let's start off here with another Andrew here on the John Justice Show.
I, for one, really would like to see debates continue because in our recent primary and local races, I really honestly didn't know a lot of differences between the different Republican candidates, and claims that Mike Lindell wants to let all illegals stay here. I believe that's what he wanted, but I also heard from people that was a lie, and I really don't know the truth at this point. So I think we need debate. The candidates putting their own information out is not helpful because they only say you don't know if it's true or not.
Thank you for the comment. You're not the only one that feels that way, by the way. We go here to the blaster line.
Hey, John, I just can't get behind you with the debate thing. About 70% of America only has social media. There's a large gap, especially those over, say, 60 don't have social media.
See, there is a reason why I said it was a bad take. I just want to point that out. First off, I have no power to stop debates. And I do want to see debates continue. My point is more generally speaking of my own personal frustration over debates, because as somebody that follows this on a daily basis, I find them less and less relevant to me. But I understand everybody's arguments as to why they believe they're still relevant. So I just want to put that out there. It's a personal thing for me. That's all. It's not a very hard take. I have no control over any of this. I just get frustrated watching debates because I rarely go and learn anything new. And they often turn into those congressional hearings that just end up serving nothing more than being sound bites for the politicians via their questions of whoever is there in the hearing. All right, before we head into the second hour of the show, I want to remind you, fantastic products await, especially if you're looking to get your sleep back on track. I'm talking about MiniLeaf and MiniLeaf.com, MINNELEAF.com. It is run locally by Eric and his wife, fantastic individuals. They want you to live a better life through their products. Head on over to their website. You can see their night gummies, which I absolutely swear by. They get me a good night's sleep. I take one before I go to bed, and I sleep fantastic. I wake up feeling refreshed and ready to do this very show every single morning. Maybe you're looking to take a break. Maybe you want to break from the typical alcoholic beverages that you use to relax. The Spooky Mini Leaf tonics are delicious, and they're certainly a great alternative to whatever your alcoholic beverage of choice is. The Fun Gummies, if you're dealing with any sort of chronic or acute pain, the Triple Diamond Pain Cream, incredibly effective. If you have any questions regarding these products, all you have to do is head on over to the website. They are all third-party tested there at MINNELEAF.com. So head on over to the website, check out the amazing products. And again, for me, the night gummies have been the absolute game changer in getting my sleep back on track. Again, that's MINNELEAF.com. Taste happy at MiniLeaf.com.
If you would like to support the John Justice Show, become an advertiser. For more details, email john.justice@americanexperiment.com.
It's John Justice, and you've probably gone through the yo-yo dieting. That was the case for me, but not anymore. You lose a few pounds, it all comes back, and more. You lose a few pounds, and it all comes back, and even more. If that's been your life, NutraWave was built for you. It certainly was for me. I've lost over 25 pounds on this amazing program. NutraWave turns on the fat burning, reignites your energy, and it's all natural. There's no pills, there's no shots, there's no excuses. It actually helps you change your relationship with food just through the process of the program. 31,000 people across the metro have tried everything else, and NutraWave is where they got their life back. And NutraWave is accepting a limited number of new people. So call and mention the word strike, and you get a $272 value Truth Metabolic Scan and a red light therapy session. I've done it. It's incredibly effective. Nothing to lose and everything to gain, but you're going to lose the weight and you're not going to put it back on. Individual results may vary. So call today at 952-260-1965. That's 952-260-1965. Remember, no pills, no shots, just results. NutraWave, there's nothing else like it. Results may vary. NutraWave is not a medical treatment. Consult your physician before starting any weight loss program.
And now, here's commentary on the latest issues facing Minnesotans from the hosts, policy fellows, and guests of American Experiment. For more content, head on over to the center of the American Experiment's YouTube page or at americanexperiment.org.
State government of Minnesota gave $500,000 of taxpayers' money to a non-profit called Gender Justice. And it was Gender Justice who brought the lawsuit against the state government, which won, which allowed for men to be put in women's prisons. And the state government, you paid for that.
Yeah.
You know, you, hard-pressed, hard-working, law-abiding Minnesota taxpayer, you paid for this. You paid for it both ends. You paid for it when they paid Gender Justice to bring the lawsuit, and you paid for it at the other end when this guy living in a woman's prison gets a sex change operation.
If you would like to support the John Justice Show, become an advertiser. For more details, email john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
So I wrote last week about the example of a sex change operation that the state of Minnesota has apparently paid for a convicted murderer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now I looked up how much do these things cost, and I got an estimate of between $50,000 and $80,000. So if you take the low end estimate, $50,000, let's say this was a cheap operation, and then you look at how much the kind of median Minnesota taxpayer pays in taxes, you're looking at about 10 Minnesotans' annual state income tax payments have gone to pay for this guy to get a sex change operation.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit americanexperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Hour two on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. And I'm glad you're with the show this morning. If you miss any portion of today's show, including the conversation, fantastic conversation this morning with President of the Institute for Liberty, Andrew Langer, you can always check out the podcast. That is available on the Mixlr app, free to download, where you can also listen to the show live and across all podcast platforms. And remember, you can watch the show live at MN Think Tank on X, also YouTube and Facebook for Center of the American Experiment.
They ain't me and they can't ever be me.
That was AOC in a video that was making the rounds over the weekend. She seemed drunk. Oh, that may just be AOC in general. Talking about men who apparently say they hate her because they're not her and they can't be her.
They hate me because they ain't me and they can't ever be me.
And that apparently at the moment is the leading candidate for the Democrats in the 2028 presidential election. make it make sense. Make this make sense as we head into the second hour of the show. We're going to get into the latest controversy regarding the James O'Keefe, Minnesota voter vouching video that's now gone viral. Yeah, that rhymed. We'll talk about that coming up. Bill Walsh here at American Experiment wrote up a fantastic piece regarding this. Also, a friend of the show, Minnesota law expert, Minnesota gun owner caucus spokesperson, Rob Dorr, chimed in on this on X. And so we'll get into that. And coming up at right around the bottom of the hour, we will dive into the bizarre vandalism that ended up taking place. A GOP House candidate, Blaine City Council member, woke up to photographs of middle fingers plastered all over her car via photocopies and Scotch tape. And again, we'll get into the issue of whether or not to be concerned, disturbed, and outraged, and whether or not we should just relentlessly mock these leftist cowards. So we'll dive into that a little bit later on in the hour. Remember, you can leave a blast at 612-584-4565. Leave us a comment. 612-584-4565 or john.justice@americanexperiment.org. Let's go here before we get back to the James O'Keefe story as the audience arrives after 7 o'clock. A socialist member of the New York State Assembly said on Thursday last week that people who steal basic necessities such as toothpaste and soap should not be arrested, arguing that the prosecution of such theft punishes people for having a doing that thing with my fingers biological need. Is this where we're at now? So your biological needs justify criminal behavior? The Assemblywoman, Emily Gallagher, who represents Greenpoint, Williamsburg, and neighboring sections of northern Brooklyn, made the remarks outside a Manhattan criminal court alongside fellow leftist officials and criminal justice advocates with Court Watch NYC. The group said it monitored 360 arraignments over 4 days and found more than half involved in misdemeanor charges. Well, maybe people shouldn't break the law. Gallagher then criticized the prosecution of shoplifting offenses involving major retailers. I have a couple of clips. First off, I believe this is a portion of the news story regarding these ridiculous comments.
Most of what we saw were crimes of poverty. People who are stealing things like toothpaste. People who are stealing things like, soap. And that means if you're stealing those things, you need them.
Advocates believe that shoplifting or bringing bags of trash onto the trains or sleeping in the subway should not be criminally prosecuted. Neither should graffiti vandalism and public urination, even ferry.
Pure and utter chaos. I have more audio from this lunatic in just a moment. The comments came, though, as Gallagher and other advocates accused the New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani of failing to deliver on his promise to redirect NYPD away from so-called quality of life issues and offenses, including low-level theft, fare evasion, as they were going to mention in the story, graffiti, public urination. That's a biological need, right? You got to go, you got to go. Listen, you guys may not realize this, but when we go into an intermission on the show, I'm usually off in the corner going to the bathroom. Why bother walking all the way to the restroom? There's a corner right over there. Devin finds it very disturbing. None of that happens. I'm pretty sure Devin would walk out.
I would quit on the spot.
No, just I'm done.
Have a good life.
I'm gone. The group specifically criticized the continued use of broken windows policing. The department, by the way, NYPD, has continued the enforcement under NYPD Commissioner Jessica Tisch, whom Mamdani retained from former Mayor Eric Adams' administration. So the broken windows policing focuses on enforcing lower level offenses in an effort to prevent more serious crime. It's very effective. Mayor Mamdani was elected on a promise of making New York City livable for all, ending the criminalization and poverty, mental health, substance and use, and homelessness, according to Freedom Agenda Sammy Filas at an event. When asked by ABC7 whether Tisch was carrying out his vision for policing, Mamdani said he was confident in her. I would not have someone serving our city if I was not confident in what they were doing. Listen, make no mistake. Let's just take, for example, the city of Minneapolis, but you can apply St. Paul to this as well. This is the same mentality. This lunatic assembly woman, this is the same mentality of the Democrat, Socialist, Communists that are on the Minneapolis City Council. They just haven't been able to convince the majority of the public in Minneapolis to go as far as what she is suggesting here, but they are darn close at this point in time. Listen, Gallagher's claim that New Yorkers are jailed over items like toothpaste is not supported by state law. Petty larceny, the charge covering thefts over $1,000, is a non-qualifying offense under New York's 2019 bail reform, meaning judges are barred from setting bail and must release defendants pending trial. That's ridiculous in and of itself. So you can steal up to $1,000's worth of product and basically get away with it. First-time shoplifting arrests in the city are typically resolved with a desk appearance ticket, and in many cases, an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal that wipes the charge completely. Retailers, meanwhile, have increasingly moved toothpaste to soap and other personal care items behind locked cases in high theft stores, to which these same idiots like this councilwoman will go and say that this is an example of fascism. Here's more of what she had to say on the street in front of that courthouse on Thursday last week.
What we saw were crimes of poverty, people who were stealing things like toothpaste, people who were stealing things like, soap. And that means if you're stealing those things, you need them. And we are choosing to protect billion-dollar companies like CVS and Walgreens over the people who are struggling to get by. So I would say that the true crime is that there is such incredible wealth disparity in this city that there are people who can be thrown in jail simply for having a biological need. And so one of the things that I'm fighting for at the state level is to make sure we pass things like treatment, not jail, and that we hold the line on the incredible criminal justice reforms that we have done over the last 10 and 20 years that are constantly being threatened by right-wing media who are looking to fearmonger about people who are actually just in absolute dire straits.
Unbelievable. And yet totally believable. It's actually a mistake for me to go and say that it's unbelievable because I don't want to dismiss it outright, because people like this are elected and put into positions of power, and often they end up moving through the ranks, and we've seen the ramifications of that across the country with the rise of these communist, Democrat, socialist. They're using that Democrat socialist label to downplay what these individuals and who these individuals really are. Let's be clear here. These are continued attempts, and successful on a lot of levels, of the left to try to redefine morality. And the same thing rings true when it comes to the other topics that we're going to dive into this hour. The loosening of our voter integrity laws means to redefine what it means to be an American, what it means to take part in the voting process, what democracy, whatever the less version of that is supposed to look like. This is the left's attempt to go and reshape and re-describe what America was founded upon to our detriment. Listen, right versus wrong, they're attempting to go and redefine it. In the absence of God and our laws as a nation, they want to dismiss both of those. The laws don't exist anymore in their minds. The laws are wrong for punishing individuals for going and committing acts of crime. That's what lunatics like this are proposing.
Good morning, John. Alex Elk River. It's the broken windows theory. It's the visible signs of disorder and minor misbehavior like broken windows, graffiti, or littering. Those all lead to more serious crimes. It was proposed in 1982. It's nothing new. Progressive hate it.
This is what dangerous people say. This is how dangerous people act. This is how they try to achieve notoriety, fame, power, and influence. by peddling this type of nonsense. And it appeals to those broken and brainwashed Democrat voters because suddenly in their minds, what they do on a daily basis isn't that big of a deal if they're breaking the law, if they're skirting the issues. It's okay to go and commit voter fraud because we're doing it for the common good, just like we are ignoring the rules as it relates to petty theft, because it's better for the common good. These are biological needs that these people have. So what if you can go and vouch for 8 individuals at a polling place? This is for the betterment of society, to make sure that we do everything that we possibly can to elect Democrats. And if this is the means in which we have to go about doing that, then we are going to push forward on it. Get back to the blaster line this morning.
Well, here we go. It's going to be the end of storefront shopping. Everyone's going to be buying stuff online, having it delivered right to their front door because of the ease and necessity is just out the door. You know, I mean, it's gone.
Yeah, and listen, it's already turning into that. As I mentioned before, they put these items behind locked cabinets to go and make sure that they're not going to be stolen. And then the left, who argues in favor of the criminal, goes and attempts to vilify the shop owner. And she did so in that comment. And yes, she's mentioning millionaires and billionaires, but that is simply a catchphrase. And what she really means is just any established company or business. Those millionaires and billionaires are the individuals that run those very stores that have to put your mundane items of necessity behind, locks, because individuals like this are encouraging people to go and steal. It used to be that this would happen and it would be on the fringes. It's not on the fringes anymore. It's now right out in front, right for everybody to see. They have no problems at all being open and honest about it. The fight is right on our doorstep, and they are telling you exactly what they want to do to this country every single step of the way. The question is whether or not a majority of the American public is going to buy into this. And as we demonstrated last hour, you already see prominent members of the Democrat Party pushing back on the DSA label, saying they don't understand what AOC was talking about with woke 1 and 2. And as I mentioned with Andrew Langer, I believe it's because they know the polling on this is absolutely atrocious. It's not a winning argument yet. And we'll see how this plays out in our local elections. Lesser in the gubernatorial race, but certainly when it comes to the Senate race between Michelle Tafoya and Peggy Flanagan. You don't think Peggy Flanagan leans into the same sort of belief system as this individual, this lunatic assemblywoman, talking about basic needs trump the laws here in America? Of course she does. She may not be as open about it as this woman is, but make no mistake, her ideology stems from exactly the same place that assemblywoman in New York's does. John.justice@americanexperiment.org. That's the email address if you want to partake in the show. You can also leave us a comment via the blaster line, 612-584-4565. Again, 612-584-4565. Undercover journalist James O'Keefe exposed Minnesota's election vulnerabilities by demonstrating the ease of vouching for up to 8 voters on Election Day. This is according to the recent piece from Bill Walsh, available now at americanexperiment.org. O'Keefe's actions highlighted the lack of provisional ballots, allowing unverified votes to be counted. Minnesota officials, including Secretary of State Steve Simon, criticized O'Keefe's methods and defended the state's election laws. And if this whole thing couldn't get any more ridiculous, and I want to dive into exactly what O'Keefe ended up accomplishing with this, and I think it's opposite of his original intent. He's bringing awareness to this particular issue in a way that nobody has before. How many people, and clearly a lot, but how many people were completely unaware that you could go and vouch for 8 people on Election Day at your polling place? So we'll dive into the latest. I have audio to share with you, and then we'll talk about this ridiculous vandalism that took place up in my neck of the woods on a Blaine councilwoman's car here on the John Justice Show. Don't go anywhere. The John Justice Show is presented by American Experiment.
And now, here's commentary on the latest issues facing Minnesotans from the hosts, policy fellows, and guests of American Experiment. For more content, head on over to the center of the AmericanExperiment.org.
I looked it up, and the percentage of children in poverty in Minnesota is about 10%, which is lower than the national average. So how come somewhere around a third, 33%, say, of children in Minnesota are on Medicaid if they aren't poor?
Sure, my kids are grown now, but I had 3 kids that I raised, and for us, we could make over $100,000 a year, and still our kids would be on Medicaid, if you can imagine that. That's middle class. That's crazy. And, we also, as a state, I think we should really measure ourselves by how few people have to rely on the government for health care, not how many. But if you ask, Governor Walz, he'll say, the more people we feed, the better. The more people on government programs, the better. And that's really how he measures the state. And we really see that in the numbers in Medicaid, which have just exploded.
Think about it. Now that school's back in session, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
We're doing a really big deep dive on Medicaid right now at the center. We're looking at just how the heck this has gotten so out of control in Minnesota. And just like since 2023, okay, we spent $18 billion on Medicaid in the state, okay? Now we are spending $27 billion in this year, okay? And we are spending that on fewer people on Medicaid. So there was 1.4 million people on Medicaid in 2023. Now there is 1.2. So you have to ask yourself, how in the heck can we be spending that much more money on Medicaid? And we're really looking into that because we think a lot of that money is going to people who are dead, people who live in other states, people who are on more than one program. And you are not surprised because you've seen that on so many different programs in the state of Minnesota. But Medicaid is by far the biggest enchilada when it comes to that.
If you would like to support The John Justice Show, become an advertiser. Competitive rates for both personal endorsements and standard ads are available. For more details, email john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
It's John Justice, and after discovering Mini Leaf's night gummies, it's no longer a challenge getting a restful night's sleep. At minileaf.com, you'll see their fantastic line of products like delicious chocolates, pain creams, and fun gummies. But for me, it's Mini Leaf's night gummies with their all-natural ingredients that have been an absolute game changer. You take one right before bed and wake up feeling rejuvenated. Head on over to MINNELEAF.com. That's minileaf.com and get your sleep back on track.
Think about it. Now that school's out for the summer, how are Minnesota students doing? Not very well. Minnesota ACT scores fell again last year and are the lowest they've been in 10 years. In fact, fewer than half of Minnesota students can either read or do math at grade level. Think about it. We used to brag about our schools. Now we're losing to states like Mississippi. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
Most of what we saw were crimes of poverty. People who were stealing things like toothpaste. People who were stealing things like, soap. And that means if you're stealing those things, you need them.
Advocates believe that shoplifting or bringing bags of trash onto the trains or sleeping in the subway should not be criminally prosecuted. Neither should graffiti vandalism and public urination.
Absolute chaos. A socialist member of the New York State Assembly said last week that people who steal the basic necessities should not be arrested, arguing that the prosecuting of such theft punishes people for having a biological need. And where does that end? I had a email that rolled in. A friend of the show, Tammy, writes, how about people who are stealing elections? People get hooked on power. How about people who are stealing lives through drunk driving because they are an alcoholic? How far will they push the narrative? How about we quit making excuses for criminals? She's absolutely right. Take it down the slippery slope. I've made this argument before, but regarding those drinking and driving, I mean, the same mentality You could go and apply to an individual going, well, you know what? I mean, that person was obviously drinking because they're having a hard time in life. And they had to get home from wherever they were. So, I mean, who are we? They didn't kill anybody on the way home. I mean, listen, Governor Dim Walz recently talking about the pardon for, what was it, Tulu Vang, who had raped a 10-year-old repeatedly over a long period of time, saying that we should not be judged on our worst day. Well, how about our worst days, Governor? It's the same ridiculous leftist mentality of this individual, this assemblywoman in New York City. Let's go back to the blaster line this morning on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
Hey, John, JD here. Yeah, listen at that crazy New York councilwoman go off on all these poor criminals, they're getting jailed for nothing. And then you mentioned the $1,000 limit and, just show up for a bench hearing and slap on the wrist if you feel something. Maybe they should go steal firearms. I wonder if they'd be pretty laid back then. Or says, maybe steal my $199 worth, so you stay under the limit. Yeah, I don't think they'd get a jail free card then.
Yeah, well, I think the firearms dealers have all of their products gone and carefully locked away for good reason. A friend of the show, Chuck from Green Isle, says, when you work to earn money, you are giving up a portion of your life to earn it. When you buy something, you are trading a portion of your life for it. When someone steals from you, they are taking a portion of your life that you gave to buy that item. If there were no thieves, we wouldn't need insurance against theft. Thank you for the email, john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
Morning, John. Yeah, I mean, simple way of fixing this. If you really believe people need all these toiletries, gather a bunch of money from all your liberal friends and buy a bunch of toiletries and give it away. But no, that's not what we do. What we do is we break down society and get rid of laws against theft. Just silly.
No, it's not just silly, it's dangerous. And of course, they're never going to go and do what you mentioned. There is power to be gained in convincing individuals that their horrible behavior, that their law breaking is justified in their minds. For those criminals out there looking for any excuse to feel better about themselves and the actions that they are taking because of the disregard for their law, this is incredibly enticing and seductive and influential commentary. Think about when you have an issue just in life in general, a difficult situation, an argument with somebody, an uncomfortable circumstance. You want a way to feel better about it, especially if you happen to be in the wrong for some reason. Right? Eventually it goes away. I tell this to my kids all the time. Whatever you're feeling right now is not going to last. That whole time heals all wounds. But a lot of individuals are looking for ways to feel better about themselves. Why do you think, and I'm just going to go on a little tangent here, why do you think so many young people on the left look the way that they do? Because they feel horrible and awful inside, because that's what the adults around them have told them. They told them to hate the country. They've told them that the individuals who are the most productive here in the United States are working against them. That the only reason why they haven't had any level of success is not because they haven't put forward the hard work, but it's because society has held them down. It is critical race theory to a T. Melinda and I were out shopping on Friday, and we happened to go to the Target over in Coon Rapids. And I was just, it's not like I haven't seen these people before, but the number of young people walking around in the store, either in groups or with their parents, that looked like a bad clown show. Like they were fans of the Insane Clown Posse. They're wearing disheveled clothing. It doesn't fit. They're in PJs. Their hair is dyed all kinds of different colors. And look, I get it. When you're younger, you do these things. They're symbols of rebellion, acts of rebellion. I did this when I was at a young age. I've talked about the first time that I met Melinda's parents. My hair was blue, for crying out loud. I looked like a Smurf. But I didn't do that because it was any sort of reflection of me inside. It was like the cool thing to do. No, there's a social contagion that's going on out in the country right now. And a part of this, when it comes to the young people, it's a reflection of how they feel on the inside. It's manifesting itself on the outside. They have no respect for who they are as an individual. And they don't respect the world around them because they've been taught to hate America. And so when it comes to commentary like this, it's incredibly enticing to people like that. You're right. You know what? I feel better now for having gone and stolen those items. I had a biological need. I needed to take a shower, and I didn't have any soap to use, so I had to go and steal it. And that's before you even get into the criminal enterprise element of all of this. When it came to, we haven't talked about this in years, but it used to be that you had groups of individuals that were stealing, huge containers of Tide detergent because they could resell it on the streets. Individuals like this New York Assemblywoman are justifying that criminal enterprise as well. We'll get back to more of your thoughts. 612-584-4565. Also, john.justice@americanexperiment.org. But let's go here. I was talking a moment ago. Bill Walsh has a piece available at americanexperiment.org. Once again, Minnesota has been exposed by an outsider with a video camera. And once again, Minnesota state officials and their public relations team, local media, are crying foul. So this goes back to the James O'Keefe voter vouching video that he did on Election Day last Tuesday. O'Keefe began the check-in process wearing, along with Cam Higby, right? Is that who was with him? Traditional Muslim attire to expose how easy it is to vouch for and register people on Election Day. So he did the process of checking in using the name of a registered voter in the precinct, and then immediately asked election workers about the vouching process. Election workers explained that he could vouch for up to 8 voters, as saying you could vouch for them as ID for them. You are the ID. As Bill Walsh writes, this may sound outrageous to anyone not living in Minnesota, but O'Keefe was simply exposing current election law. And he's right. The poll workers said or did nothing wrong. If O'Keefe was actually a registered voter, he could have brought in 8 other voters and signed an oath affirming that they live in his precinct. The voters would then go through the registration process and sign their own oath saying they are who they are, and then they vote. And their vote disappears into the machine with all the other votes. O'Keefe left the polling places after getting his vouching questions answered by election workers. From the looks of the video, writes Bill Walsh, he didn't ask for or receive a ballot, but instead left the precinct to telling poll workers he was going to retrieve his friends waiting outside. So James O'Keefe smartly avoided his own controversy in performing this stunt. While O'Keefe exposed our perfectly legal vouching process to the rest of the country, the real problem is that vouched for voters and all other voters who register on Election Day are verified after their votes are counted. That's the problem. And we're talking weeks after the election. And that's because Minnesota is the only state in the U.S. with same-day voter registration and no provisional balloting. In other states, the ballots of those who register on Election Day are set aside as provisional until their identity and residency can be verified. Their votes are only counted once the verification is completed. In Minnesota, if you register and vote on Election Day and your information can't be verified, we flag your name in the database so that you can't vote in the next election. But we can't go back and retrieve your ballot. It's already been counted. Now, the Secretary of State, Steve Simon, called O'Keefe's undercover video outrageous and went and quickly released a statement regarding it. Let me start here, though. Here is a bit of the coverage from a local KSTP over this particular issue.
This video posted to social media, a group of political commentators say they were testing the limits of the state's vouching requirements and what ID is needed. They say they never voted. Richard Reeve heard from a man who says his name was used in that video without his permission. Rich?
Yeah, Kirsten, that's right. Will Pomeroy reached out to us, surprised and angry, he says, that his name popped up in that video. He says he doesn't know how the conservative group that posted the video got his name, and we went looking for answers.
It feels like smoke and mirrors, and it makes me mad.
Will Pomerantz is one unhappy voter.
What was your reaction when you saw your name in that video?
It was a bit of shock the first time I saw it. I had to watch it a couple times. And then anger.
He's talking about this YouTube video posted by conservative commentator James O'Keefe at Pratt Elementary School in Minneapolis. used as a polling place.
So this is the vote. The name is William. The last name? Pomerantz.
In the video, O'Keefe says he was testing the state's voting voucher laws, all while giving poll workers the name William Pomerantz.
I was pretty angry at it because I'm being misrepresented in this video, which is, you know, kind of a misrepresentation of our voting system. So pretty angry. That was my gut after shock.
In the video, O'Keefe says poll workers were going to allow him to vote without verifying his ID. It shows him leaving after being told he needed to sign an oath.
What's your takeaway from seeing this video?
The first thing is he has a history of trying to do stunts like this to try to prove that the election system is not working, that it's easy to impersonate or that it's easy to commit fraud, but he gets caught every time.
In Minnesota,
that's not necessarily what he's doing, or at least that's not what's happened here. I find that a really interesting spin because there's a lot of individuals in support of what James O'Keefe did here that assumed the same thing. As Bill Walsh noted, and as we talked about last week, what James O'Keefe was doing is completely legal here in Minnesota. But the truth of the matter is, most people aren't aware of it. They're not aware that these laws exist, that you can actually go and do this. And while it may be legal, it doesn't make it right any more than ballot harvesting is right, even though it's legal in a lot of states. There's about another minute on this audio before I get back to the KSTP story. Let's go back to the blaster line because it fits in with the commentary right now here on the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment.
I have a friend who's an election official or an election volunteer official, and she was unaware of the voucher program. And we got into a discussion, and she said, no, it's simply not true. And I said, go to Steve Simon's website, section 3, and look at it. And she was dumbfounded that somebody could vote without an ID.
That's the real power in what James O'Keefe did. Let's get back to the Channel 5 reporting.
A voter can vouch for up to 8 people in the same precinct, but only to establish residency. State law says the person being vouched for must still provide their Minnesota driver's license or ID card number or the last 4 digits of their Social Security number.
Vouching for a person does not allow them to vote.
Secretary of State Steve Simon says poll workers reported O'Keefe's actions to election officials and says law enforcement is investigating. We asked Pomerantz if he thinks the state needs more stringent elections rules.
I like the system as it is. You know, maybe it'll have people take a harder look at it, but it seems still at the moment to be working.
It may be working, but it depends on what your definition of working is. So this is what Secretary of State Steve Simon had to say in his press release. During Minnesota's primary, August 11th, members of a widely discredited Florida-based political group visited several polling places impersonating Minnesota voters. Dressed in what they called Muslim costumes and imitating foreign accents, they falsely claimed to be registered Minnesota voters. The group used concealed cameras to record their interactions with poll workers, releasing a heavily edited video of their encounters. Their apparent goal was to cast doubt on one or more of the Minnesota election laws that have been enforced for over 50 years. I don't care how long they've been in force. Instead, they reveal their ignorance and how those laws actually work while putting themselves in legal jeopardy. Listen, they may have gone and shown ignorance about how the laws work and all this stuff is legal, but they were absolutely effective in spreading the word to individuals like that previous comment on the blaster line just mentioned. You had an election worker who was completely unaware that this was even something you could legally go and do. As Bill Walsh writes at AmericanExperiment.org, Simon's statement exposes his defensiveness about our weak election laws, especially as they relate to Election Day registration. He criticized O'Keefe for casting doubt on one or more of the Minnesota election laws that have been in force for over 50 years. O'Keefe's videos absolutely cast doubt on the practice of vouching without provisional ballots. And while there's no ignorance of how laws work, the videos exposed exactly how the law works. Simon ends with the threat that an undercover journalist are now in legal jeopardy. The local media dutifully covered the story from Simon's perspective, as we just played from KSTP. Vouching, is, they say, is the most utilized by senior citizens who have not updated their address. There is no evidence, writes Bill Walsh, to back up that statement. In fact, Secretary of Simon does not release data on who's participating in Election Day voting in Minnesota. And why do you think Secretary of State Steve Simon is so reluctant to go and release the voter rolls here in Minnesota? And we'll get into more of that in just a moment, because Attorney General Todd Blanche was on national media over the weekend talking about that very issue of the states that refuse to turn over their voter rolls. Bill Walsh wraps up his piece saying, state officials and their allies in the media embarrassed themselves trying to discredit Nick Shirley for exposing the Leering Center in Minneapolis. And they're doing it again with the latest video from James O'Keefe. Let's get back to some of your thoughts on the blaster line this morning.
Hey, John, this is Ben. The guy who they used his name, why is he not mad at the state for allowing, they're going to allow this guy to use his name and vouch for 8 other people? They're going to let him do it. I don't know how he's mad at the guy for using his name instead of the state for allowing it to happen.
Of course he is. Of course he's mad at the guy who used his name instead of the state, because he probably aligns with a lot of what the state represents and what this voter vouching rule actually does in opening up the door to making our election system vulnerable to fraud. That's my biggest issue with it. I'll talk more about that in a moment. But Ben, you're not the only one that had this thought this morning on the blaster line.
It's interesting that guy was so angry that his name was used in a video, but not at all concerned that anybody could have gone up there and used his name to actually vote for him.
Yeah. It's pretty stunning. So Rob Dorr from the Minnesota Gun Owners Caucus and a Minnesota law expert, he wrote regarding this issue, O'Keefe's stunt leaves out parts of Minnesota law that make this much less sensational, says Rob. A registered voter can vouch for up to 8 people, which is admittedly a bit silly, but the voucher must sign an oath in front of an election judge, swearing that he is registered in the precinct and personally knows each person lives there. Intentional violations of Minnesota's voter registration laws are felonies, and materially false statements in a legally required sworn writing also constitutes perjury. The stunt also skips post-election verification. Same-day registrations are entered into the statewide system, checked against government identification data, mailed verification notices, and unresolved eligibility issues can be referred to the county attorney. O'Keefe conveniently stopped before signing a sworn statement that could expose him to prosecution, so no votes were actually cast. This is all relevant. Rob Dorr is right. But what makes this stunt so effective is, as I mentioned before, its exposure to most people that didn't realize that we had a ridiculous law like this. Let me put it another way. All of the various verifications that need to take place, as Bill Walsh noted, this is all after the votes have been counted after Election Day. Do you think for a second they're going to go back and remove any of those votes? Do you think for a second, do you trust the Democrat DFL leadership in the state to go and do all of these various steps of verification when it comes to those who were vouched? I don't. It's in the law. If it doesn't happen, people should be held accountable. But look at what's happened to fraud in the state. Listen, I agree. I think there is a level of, and this is splitting hairs on the issue, I think there is a level of what James O'Keefe did here wherein he was attempting to go and try to put out a message saying that what was happening was illegal. That was my perception initially, because a lot of the responses from individuals across the country who were unaware of this ridiculous law were leaning into that thought. But that clearly wasn't the case. You can legally go and do what James O'Keefe did. And he was smart enough to stop short before he ended up breaking any sort of election laws. But again, the power of this is the exposure of how the Democrats here in Minnesota for decades have done their best to go and game the system to their advantage and made what should be airtight in terms of our election integrity. They've poked as many holes in it as humanly possible to make it vulnerable to fraud, because they know that fraud, especially election fraud, overwhelmingly benefits Democrats. We'll get back to more of your thoughts on this in just a moment here on the John Justice Show. Again, if you want to leave us a blast, you can do so at 612-584-4565 or drop us an email, john.justice@americanexperiment.org. I want to talk to you for just a moment and to the men and women out there who have been struggling with your weight. You've probably lost your confidence, right? Your old self would be disappointed in you. You used to be a lot thinner. You used to own the room, and now you don't anymore. Let's change all of that. And you can do it without any pills and without any shots. The NutriWave program, NutriWave.us is the website. What Dr. Bob will set you up with. It's already helped for over 13 years. Thousands of men and women lose the weight. I've now lost 25 pounds on this program. I lost about 22 pounds on my initial round. I came off the diet, and it completely changed my relationship with food. I still love food. I still get to eat what I want to eat, but I know now portion sizes and what to do for an individual who is, my age and my size. The program was so successful for me. I'm on round 2 right now, and I'm already losing weight again, and I'm excited about it. And that's what the program does. You lose the weight so quickly, it becomes encouraging as you move through and take advantage of this program. Listen, it all starts with a free Truth Metabolic Scan and a free red light therapy session. We're talking a $272 value, absolutely free. All you have to do is call 952-260-1965 and mention the keyword strike. Just find out about the program. Limited spots are available, but you can grab, again, an almost $300 value, absolutely free, by just reaching out to NutriWave and talking with Dr. Bob about what this amazing program entails. Again, 952-260-1965. 952-260-1965. No pills, no shots at NutriWave.us. Individual results may vary.
And now here's commentary on the latest issues facing Minnesotans from the hosts, policy fellows, and guests of American Experiment. For more content, head on over to the center of the American Experiment's YouTube page or at americanexperiment.org.
It's so upsetting to see our leaders, like Governor Walz, gaslighting us, basically, and saying, no, things are going great. We are one of the best states in the country. Then why are people leaving? And why are people struggling? And why are people saying that Minnesota's on the wrong track?
Yeah, that is such a good point. I mean, it's just every day you realize, you talk to people who say it's just so hard in Minnesota right now. And then we have people at the top who are completely denying that there's any problem whatsoever.
Think about it. Minnesota has always been a low-crime state. But according to the most recent Bureau of Criminal Apprehension data, we are now above the national average when it comes to Part 1 crimes, a category that includes crimes like murder, assault, rape, and carjackings. Think about it. Minnesota is now a high-crime state. Visit highcrimemn.com to learn more. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
John Phelan has this incredible chart posted at americanexperiment.org where he plotted out the CNBC ranking of best states to live in and the states that people are actually moving to and away from. It's a negative correlation. People don't want to live in states with these policies that CNBC, the great authority on this and that Governor Walz is touting, sees as, the ultimate factors in, high quality of life. It's just a joke.
I mean, that's the actual data we should be looking at, is where people are moving. People move with their feet. Where are they going? They're going to red states with better policy.
Hey, it's John Justice, and you know how important it is for me to get a good night's sleep before every show. If you're having trouble catching those Z's, let me introduce you to the solution. Mini Leaf's Night Gummies. These gummies are crafted with natural ingredients to help you unwind and enjoy a restful night's sleep. Trust me, just take one before you go to bed, and you'll wake up feeling rejuvenated. Remember, it's MINNELEAF.com. Head on over to minileaf.com right now and get your sleep back on track.
If you would like to support the John Justice Show, become an advertiser. Competitive rates for both personal endorsements and standard ads are available. For more details, email john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
It's a John Justice Show presented by American Experiment. If you want to leave us a comment, you can do so on the Blaster line, 612-584-4565. We'll get to a few of your comments regarding the continued controversies surrounding James O'Keefe and his voter vouching video from last week. As we mentioned, you ended up having Fox 9, KSTP both jumped on this story. Authorities reviewing election voting vouching stunt by conservative influencer. If only Minnesota election officials cared as much over every other circumstance of potential voter fraud and allegations. You know, like illegal aliens admitting that they're voting and others are voting during legislative hearings, officially on record. But again, we're talking about Democrats, and my expectations are incredibly low, as they are for this blast from foe of the show, Eric and Brainerd, here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
Hey, morning, Eric from Brainerd. Rob Dorr is 100% right. Boomers, friends of the show, listen up. These little stunts, these Nick Shirley, a Mormon with fetal alcohol syndrome, and James O'Keefe, these might get a lot of videos from the broken and the brainwashed, but they're not changing normie Norm's mind.
Let me pause it here. First off, that's not what Rob said. All Rob did was go and show the specificity of which is being exposed. If you want to go and ignore, go right ahead. Ignore the coverage. Ignore the fact that more people are finding out about this ridiculous voter vouching law than they ever would have before. Ignore the fact that it's not just the normie Norms out there. A lot of people didn't realize that this was a means at which people could go and vote on Election Day. It's legal, but it doesn't make it right. But if you want to be ignorant and ignore it, go for it to your own detriment, by all means.
And no one's getting these inside jokes about Lurie centered or whatever. It's not making a difference.
There's a phrase, thou doth protest too much, but we'll continue to hear from the foe of the show.
People like Lisa Damon that are pretending that they were responsible for the Nick Shirley thing.
She didn't do that. There's like, Lisa Damon didn't do that. You had David Hoke, who was a part of the investigation and the videos put out by Nick Shirley, who went and endorsed Lisa Damath, saying that while they were out there exposing the fraud that was taking place, and Nick Shirley's videos are much in line with James O'Keefe. He didn't really expose anything new to a lot of us that have been paying attention to what's been going on, but he did bring it to millions of people who were completely unaware of the level of fraud here in Minnesota. All Lisa Damath did was say, hey, thank you for the endorsement from an individual who, as I just mentioned, brought the issue of fraud to millions of individuals.
Absolutely incredible, but this isn't going to stop the Democrats. We need more debates to show their ideas don't work. We don't need these lies like the James O'Keefe video to prove a point that's misleading and people immediately see it and smell it for what it is. BS.
There was no lie presented in what James O'Keefe did. He just exposed what you can legally go and do. The lie is more than likely this foe of the show, who I am convinced is using a voice disguiser to hide their true identity, which I've talked about a lot for those long-term listeners of the show, because Democrats are cowards. Make no mistake. And this is the example that we'll give, even though I'm somewhat behind schedule, with this very disturbing attempt at vandalism that happened of a GOP House candidate waking up to find her car plastered with pictures of middle fingers. So we'll dive into this coming up. This was an act of cowardice by these individuals who went and did this ridiculous stunt, just like I believe is an act of cowardice that individuals like Eric from Brainerd are too afraid to go and let everybody know who they actually are. Let's get back to some more of your thoughts from the Blaster line this morning at 612-584-4565.
Good morning, John. Bob from Lake Elmo. Great show so far. Vouching. I believe back in the 90s, it was either you could vouch for 20 people and it might even be unlimited. There was a debate somewhere along the way that brought it down to 8 because we still needed to vouch for people, but unlimited or 20 was too many. Why don't we just make it 0?
You know, if the media was worth their salt here in Minnesota, the story wouldn't be necessarily about this guy who's obviously a left-leaning individual who seems to be unfazed over what had taken place and the fact that his name could have been used in election fraud. He was more concerned that this video was exposing this voter vouching law. But the real story is do some follow-up on what actually happens in terms of the process, like Rob Doar did. Do an investigative report of how often individuals who are vouched for are actually looked at by the state to ensure that they are legal voters. Of course, that would actually be, Minnesota media doing their job and not carrying the water for the DFL.
Hey, good morning, John. Bruce and Shakopee. Did I hear Steve Simon saying you had to show your Minnesota driver's license and provide the last 4 digits of your social security number? You mean like showing ID? Wow. I tried to show ID at my precinct when I voted, and they said, you don't need to show that. So there's a mixed message, and we know that. Have a good day.
Yeah, there absolutely is a mixed message. It drives me nuts every time I go to vote. I want to be asked my ID. I do. I know I've got my little oath that's right there that I'm supposed to read, and I have to sign the little screen saying it's okay. But I would like to be asked for my ID, mostly because the photograph on my ID is actually pretty good. It's a pretty decent picture of myself, to be honest with you. No, it's because I want that election integrity. And I'm not bothered, like apparently those on the left are, when it comes to being asked for your identification. Let's go back to the blaster line.
Good morning, John. Rich here. So why is it even relevant, this voucher system, when you can mail in a ballot, and if it's postmarked, that's its validation and vouching for that vote? That's what really gets me is, why would you take the risk of doing a falsehood and like this when you could just mail in a false ballot?
Thank you. As always, friend of the show, Rich. Let's go back to one more comment on the issue here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. Another blast from a friend of the show, Liz.
What a hard-hitting investigative journalist piece that was by KFCT to pick up Will Pomerantz, obvious flaming liberal, to tell us that the voting system is okay and completely miss the whole point of James O'Keefe's stunt, which is to expose the fact that you can do this in this godforsaken state.
Thank you for the comments. Sorry for calling you Elizabeth there. Again, I get thrown off based off of the names that roll into the blaster line at 612-584-4565. We are going to keep on the topic of voting. I want to share with you a couple of pieces of audio. Attorney General Todd Blanche being interviewed by NBC's Meet the Press over the weekend and talking specifically about the states like ours that refuse to turn over our voter rolls. And then we'll dive into what happened to the Blaine City councilwoman. Takes everything for me not to say council, by the way. Just want to say that. Also a House candidate currently. Before we do, though, take a calendar and try to circle a day that you don't want to get a good night's sleep, right? You're not going to circle any day because you want to get a good night's sleep. It's one of the keys to being healthy, right? And take it from somebody whose circadian rhythm went out the window decades ago, being a morning talk show host. It's really difficult, at least it was, for me to get a good night's sleep. But now I take the night gummies from Minileaf and minileaf.com, and it works with your body to make you go to sleep and to stay asleep. And even if you get up a couple times a night, trust me, you're going to go right back to sleep when you hit the sheets. It's made with all natural ingredients, which was incredibly important to me. Non-addictive, no psychoactive effects, cheaper than a bad cup of coffee, and you feel better every single day. I wake up feeling refreshed, ready to tackle the show, to do my prep, to drive in, to talk to you guys Monday through Friday every single week. Go online to minileaf.com, MINNELEAF.com. It can be delivered right to your door. So easy and so good. You're going to taste happy at minileaf.com. Again, that's MINNELEAF.com for minileaf.com. As we enter into the third hour here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment, you can listen live at americanexperiment.org or on the free MixLR app, MIXLR app. The podcasts are available after the show right there on the app and across all major podcast platforms. You can also watch the show live at MN Think Tank on X and also on Facebook and YouTube at the Center of the American Experiment Facebook and YouTube pages. You can watch it there as well. Keeping with the theme of voting, the Justice Department may ask the Supreme Court to intervene after losing 22 court cases challenging its effort to access the voter rolls. Now, the DOJ argues it wants to investigate potential voter fraud, but judges have sided with the states refusing to turn over the data. So Attorney General Todd Blanche has said the Justice Department might ask the Supreme Court to intervene after the judges have repeatedly ruled against the Trump administration's efforts to access the voter rolls. Here's a bit of what the Attorney General Todd Blanche had to say on Meet the Press over the weekend at NBC.
Over their voter rolls, state officials have pushed back against those moves. They say states dictate how elections are run, not the federal government. Is it time for the DOJ to drop this fight, and will you do it?
Well, we're relying on a statute passed by Congress that allows us, in the right circumstances, to review and get those voter rolls. And so, yes, we're not going to stop doing what I think every American should expect us to do, which is make sure that we have elections that are fair. And as that relates to the Department of Justice, that means making sure that there are no constitutional legal violations, even at the state level. So, yes, President Trump, this administration knows and of course understands that states administer elections, and that will always be the case, but it doesn't mean the federal government should play no role. And so the tension there is, of course, whether we should be playing the role that we're playing, and that's really what we're litigating.
How far are you willing to take this fight? Because you've been ruled against now 22 times. Are you going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court, do you anticipate?
We'll see. We'll see what happens. We're trying to work it out with states. Of course. Yes, absolutely. It's a possibility. Election integrity is something that President Trump ran on, and the American people elected him. It's something that every American should care about. And so the idea that the Department of Justice is trying to investigate issues around elections to make sure they're fair and make sure they're conducted the right way is not something that we should be running away from. That's something we should be running right towards.
I want to finally...
Again, that was Todd Blanche talking with Kristen Welker over the weekend on Meet the Press. Trump previously issued an executive order requiring states to turn over voter rolls. That includes names, dates of birth, addresses, driver's license numbers, and the last four digits of Social Security numbers. And the Justice Department has argued that it wants to investigate whether non-citizens are registered to vote and can identify any other irregularities. The Justice Department has sued 30 states and D.C. for refusing to turn over the voter rolls, with federal judges as siding with the states, which is what they were referring to a moment ago. We're not going to stop, and what I think every American should expect us to do, which is make sure that we have elections that are fair, Blanche went on to say. And as that relates to the Department of Justice, that means making sure there are no constitutional legal violations at the state level. I have one more clip from Todd Blanche that I'll share with you in a different moment on a separate subject. I do want to get back to some more of your thoughts from the blaster line this morning at 612-584-4565. So, foe of the show, Eric from Brainerd, I'm not going to play the entirety of the comment again. I'm trying to stick to my rule of only putting on one friend or foe of the show blast every single morning. But he took issue with my saying that Lisa Damuth, or she did, depending on the voice disguiser, that Lisa Damuth didn't try to take credit for the Nick Shirley video. So there's a little bit of wordplay here. So what Lisa Damuth said was that she helped assist in Nick Shirley in spreading the information about what he revealed in his videos. At some point, Nick Shirley had said, I don't even know who you are. What Lisa Damuth was referring to, what everybody did. I could have made the same claim and it would have been accurate. I also helped Nick Shirley in getting the information out regarding the fraud here in Minnesota, both before he did the investigation, during his videos, and after those videos were released. Many individuals did, Lisa Damuth included. She actually did a better job serving in a position of power in the legislature. So my apologies for not being completely and totally specific for the foe of the show. But that's what she was referring to. And she was right to say that, because she did help amplify Nick Shirley's fraud coverage and did even more relating to her role within the legislature. So nice try, but I appreciate you leaving a comment here on the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment.
I really wish Eric from Brainerd would have picked a different fake name. This is Eric from Tennessee. Everything that he said is just overlooking the fact that what those videos show is everything the politicians say never happens is actually happening. It's the same thing with the Leering Center videos. It wasn't happening until it was. Those videos are irrefutable proof that everything the politicians are saying is untrue.
We also have a blast from a friend of the show, Scott, which means we have to deploy the ScottCon level. 1 being the least enthusiastic, 5 being the most enthusiastic. He's talking about the James O'Keefe voter vouching videos, and we have a new producer who's arrived here on the show, Isaac, on a Monday morning. Good morning, Isaac.
Good morning. Good morning.
So where do you think Scott's going to be on the ScottCon level on a 1 to 5 scale?
Just give me 3 this morning.
You going to go with 3?
Yes, starting off the week mild.
You know what? I'm going 5. I think he's going all in on his comment on the blaster line this morning. Let's find out for sure here on the John Justice Show.
Good morning, John. What went on with James O'Keefe was an eye-opener to everybody, but I think we all know that the election system in the state favors the DFL, and when they need that extra couple votes, they got their ways of getting them. What bothers me is that if this were something to do with the Republican candidate benefiting by this type of voting chicanery, these DFLers would be losing their mind that this is not fair and these people need to go to jail. Hypocrisy at its finest.
I'm going to say 4.
Yeah, it was probably 4.
He was borderline 5, but there was a meandering over into 3 there for a little bit. Always love to hear from a friend of the show, Scott, on the blaster line. Let's go back to another comment this morning.
Having an ID is part of participating in what we have is a constructive society. So having 8 people be vouched for voting means these people don't have IDs, whether they're actual citizens or not, and they're not trying to participate. So why should they have a say in how we are being governed? That's the whole point of this. That's what they want. They want these people that don't actually care about how this country's ran. They just want people that are easy to deal with.
Thank you for the blast there, Blake. Again, 612-584-4565, and you can email john.justice@americanexperiment.org. Let's play for you that other clip from Todd Blanche, was on NBC, Kristen Welker, and was taking zero BS from Kristen Welker regarding President Donald Trump, his presidential pardon powers. Here is a bit of a testy exchange between the Attorney General and the NBC News host.
Of course, used to be President Trump's former personal defense attorney. Can you pledge that the Justice Department will always act independently of the White House?
Well, there's a big difference between saying we will always do our job and investigate any case and act independently of the White House. No, I'm not going to pledge that, and no attorney general should ever pledge that. The president, I mean, if I were to pledge I will be independent of the White House, what that means is that if President Trump says, I want the Department of Justice to go after every violent criminal in this country, which is what he has said, what you're saying to me is I just say, no, sir, I'm not going to do it. So I will act with integrity. Our prosecutors will act with integrity. We will prosecute without fear or any sort of favor. And that's exactly what we've been doing, and that's what every Department of Justice should do.
Well, I guess big picture, if the president asks you to do something that you feel crosses an ethical or legal line, would you do it?
The president will never ask me to do something unethical or legal or illegal. He never has. He never will. And no, I swore to the Constitution of the United States, like every cabinet secretary has done, and like every attorney general before me has done. And so, this narrative that's mostly pushed by the left and pushed by the media, that the president's going to pull me aside and ask me to do something illegal, is completely a false narrative, not true, will not happen, and hasn't happened.
Okay,
I expect good things out of Attorney General Todd Blanche, and I feel like he does a fantastic job. And I didn't have a ton of complaints over Pam Bondi. I agree with a lot of the frustrations of the way that she handled the DOJ, but I thought generally speaking she was doing a decent job. That being said, based off of the way that then acting Attorney General Todd Blanche had conducted himself, and now as Attorney General, I do anticipate great things coming from Todd Blanche. All right, coming up, Republican candidate for the Minnesota House of Representatives woke up to a disturbing sight on Saturday morning. Leslie Larson, current member of the Blaine City Council, again, takes me everything not to say council, but it's my neck of the woods, and there's some good people on the Blaine City Council, including Leslie Larson. She found her car had been covered with pictures of middle fingers early Saturday morning. A security camera captured at least 4 people standing around the dark colored 4-door vehicle in the driveway with their faces covered. We'll get into more details of this, and there is a lot of outrage. This has been a story covered by almost every single local outlet, surprisingly, but it is. And you've got a lot of members of the Republican GOP, the Senate and the legislature, that are rightfully upset about this issue. But I want to kind of ask you, do we get outraged or offended over this, or shouldn't we just mock these cowards relentlessly? I want to dive into that aspect of it, because this is a really juvenile thing to do. I mean, it's on par with TPing somebody's home. There is a, election government official aspect to it that raises the severity level. But make no mistake, the mentality is the same as a group of, high schoolers graduating, going and TPing somebody's home. So should we be mocking these cowards? Or should we take it more seriously as a threat to an elected official and GOP House candidate? Get your comments in, john.justice@americanexperiment.org, or leave us a blast at 612-584-4565. Again, that's 612-584-4565. We'll get to your comments coming up in just a moment here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
All the special interests are represented in St. Paul. But who speaks for you? Center of the American Experiment does. Our policy fellows dig into the tough issues that matter to you and offer common sense solutions on education, taxes, crime, and energy. American Experiment is the trusted, nonpartisan voice of Minnesotans like you. We are working every day to make Minnesota a better, safer, more prosperous place. We are American Experiment. Go to americanexperiment.org to learn more.
And now, here's commentary on the latest issues facing Minnesotans. From the hosts, policy fellows, and guests of American Experiment. For more content, head on over to the center of the American Experiment's YouTube page or at americanexperiment.org.
This woman
I didn't know this about
has had a bunch of credible allegations going back years to when she worked for the city. She's been doing this behavior, right?
This is the St. Paul mayor who's now under investigation, and we'll get to the details here in a moment.
She used to be with St. Paul working as staff, and she had this falling out with a friend who filed a harassment restraining order against her.
So, St. Paul Mayor Cowley Herr under investigation, sexual harassment following complaints from the police chief Axel Henry. I get that reversed. The investigation going on since April involves inappropriate text messages and other alleged incidents, raising concerns about transparency and the use of personal devices for government business. Herr has stated her commitment to cooperating with the investigation. What's interesting about her statement that she released on Wednesday, there was no denial at all. She took the stance of, people just don't understand my My humor, my sexy humor. I'm adding the sexy part in, but that's what it is.
Think about it. A famous politician once said, "You're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own facts." But in a world full of AI and fake news, where can Minnesotans find the facts? Center of the American Experiment is Minnesota's go-to source for fact-based analysis and common sense solutions for taxes, energy, public safety, and our kids' education. Visit AmericanExperiment.org for more information. Think About It is brought to you by Center of the American Experiment, Minnesota's think tank.
There was just a video that went viral the other day of Nick Shirley talking to a woman in New York who had been sexually assaulted. And she said, I would rather that person doesn't spend the rest of their life in jail, and I don't have an answer of how to do that. But I don't even think they should even go to jail because our jail system is so messed up. And he was like, well, then how do you stop it from happening? Well, I don't really have an answer. Go back to Mayor Lynch, mayor of whatever county is that the same type of logic can be employed, that you're looking at, well, they were convicted and they're going to have to wear that mark. But really, do we think it's fair that we would send this person to another country because of this? And to me, that type of suicidal empathy leads to the destruction of our society.
If you would like to support The John Justice Show, become an advertiser. Competitive rates for both personal endorsements and standard ads are available. For more details, email john.justice@americanexperiment.org.
And it is the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment. Republican candidate from the Minnesota House of Representatives woke up to a disturbing sight on Saturday morning, as we were mentioning. She found her car had been covered with pictures of middle fingers early on Saturday morning. This is Leslie Larson. She is a GOP House candidate, current member of the Blaine City Council. Yeah, the photographs, I can't tell. They look like somebody had put their hand on a photocopier and done the middle finger. You know, instead of what you see in the television show tropes when people go and they do a picture of their butt. It's always I think Kevin did that on The Office when he photocopied a picture of his butt. Am I getting that right, Isaac? Did you see? Yes. Did you see? By the way, did you see the photo of Leslie Larson's car with the pictures all over it? Okay, so do you think that they were photographs of somebody giving the middle finger, or do you think it was photocopies?
I don't know. I hope it was just like a photograph, because otherwise that would be like a really long process.
It wasn't even. By the way, it wasn't even like different photos.
No, it's just the same one.
So we're going to get into that because I'm in these individuals need to be relentlessly mocked category as opposed to being outraged over this. That's where I land. And I use the example of Nazis. We used to relentlessly mock Nazis. They were the butt of jokes within films. I'll never forget the Indiana Nazis and the Blues Brothers. This was never something taken seriously. Are there white supremacists in the country? Yes, there's still a small group of white supremacists in the country. Are there Nazis in the country? Yes, there are still people that find, Adolf Hitler to be an inspiration to them, but they're not mass numbers. And we had reduced them off to, the darkest corners of society wherein they didn't make themselves known. Now they only make themselves known if they're a part of a, Democrat presidency and you got a bunch of FBI agents out there posing as white supremacists and Nazis. But we used to mock them relentlessly. But of course, the left went and co-opted it and decided to make Republicans Nazis. And this is where we've landed now. These individuals here, this is a ridiculous act of vandalism, and I understand the level of concern with a House candidate and a sitting member of a city council. But at the same time, make no mistake, these fools are pure and utter cowards. And what I want to do coming up in just a moment is sort of reverse engineer how this whole thing came about, because that's a part of it that I believe is parody worthy at this point in time. Let's get back to some of your thoughts from the Blaster line this morning at 612-584-4565 here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
I actually think we should relentlessly ridicule these people for being the dummies that they are, but we should also celebrate because we are now living in those people's brains. They're doing this because they are upset. They are feeling threatened. And that's what they should be feeling. People are trying to take back this state, and they're doing stupid, immature, baby-like things like this to protest what they're feeling. And they really don't know what they're feeling, but they're feeling threatened. So let's celebrate it, and let's mock the crap out of them.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Well, I don't want to celebrate it, but I do want to mock the daylights out of him. So, at one point, one of the individuals appears to snap a selfie in the driveway. This is via, and you can see all this footage. I pulled this story from Alpha News. So if you head on over to alphanews.org, you can see the video and Leslie Larson's car for yourself. She posted the images and the videos of the incident on Facebook along with these comments. Here was my car this morning in our driveway. If anyone has any information that can assist in finding who vandalized my car, please share. It appears that one of them was taking a selfie during their activity. Ring cam of footage from others nearby would also be helpful, she writes. My kids do not know who this is, nor was my teen's car the target. Her car was next to mine and had teen accessories. Okay. It's very disturbing, and we would like them found. Larson is running on a platform of fighting fraud and bringing accountability to state government. The Republican Party in Minnesota commented on the incident, writing, "The targeting of candidates at their homes is totally unacceptable. We stand with Leslie Larson for MN." And I do not want to downplay or diminish that aspect of the story. Okay, make no mistake. The Republican Party of Minnesota in this commentary is absolutely correct, in as much as you should not have candidates' homes being targeted. I do want to relentlessly mock, however, what these individuals actually did in their vandalism protest. Before we get back to that, let's go and hear some of your thoughts on the John Justice Show. The blaster line is 612-584-4565.
Hi, John. Good. So great to get back into hearing you every morning. So thanks for coming back. Love the show. As a Blaine resident, the city council story really grinds my gears. My husband and I have decided, after living in Blaine for 14 years, to uproot our family and move outside of the Twin Cities to the country life because of the Somalian takeover, the violence that's taken over this city. It's just absolutely disgusting. The story doesn't.
The Blaine Police Department, and thank you for the kind words. I greatly appreciate it. The Blaine Police Department said the incident occurred Saturday at approximately 1:30 a.m. No damage was observed on the vehicle. The incident remains an ongoing investigation. At this time, we are unable to confirm any motive, including whether the victim was targeted due to their status as a candidate for office. Larson is running to represent District 32B in November, which includes the Blaine and Lexington areas. I appreciate everyone's outpouring of support, but at this time, I just want privacy for my family and will not be commenting on this matter further, Larson said in the statement. Let's get back to some more of your thoughts from the blaster line this morning at 612-584-4565.
John, good morning. Tim from Chicago. This Blaine incident is just another example of arrested development. Somewhere in the liberal left development, somewhere probably in mid-high school, they stop developing intellectually, and they still expect everybody to take care of them. And when they don't, they throw a fit. Have a good day.
I want to reverse engineer this for a second. So you had, 5 or 6 individuals. You can see this in the video footage at alphanews.org that are all around this car. They've got their scotch tape. They have their photocopies of middle fingers, and they're taping it all over the vehicle. What was the organizing meeting like of these people? So somebody had to come up with an idea of targeting, and this was targeted here. I mean, we'll wait for the official investigation, but this was clearly targeting Leslie Larson. This wasn't just an average individual and a group of people wandering down the street that happened to see her car and admit, that's the one we want to put middle fingers on. No, they targeted her specifically. But what was that conversation like? So somebody had to bring up an idea. Let's do something to Leslie Larson. Who has any thoughts? Who has any ideas? Man, I'd really just love to see her, to give her the middle finger. Boy, I would love to give her the middle finger, too. I know what. Why don't we take a photograph of a middle finger? And why don't we tape it on her car? Oh, that's a good idea. As a matter of fact, we can take the photograph of a middle finger, and then we can make copies of it. And we can put a bunch on her car. And we'll tape it all over the vehicle. Wouldn't that be funny? Wouldn't that be intimidating? Listen, I know that the intention here was to garner the level of attention that they're now giving it, but to what end? What are you hoping to accomplish? Are you so, what's the word? Are you so uneasy? Do you have so little faith in your own policy positions that this is what you determined you wanted to go and waste time on? Not just one person. Like if it's one person being an idiot, it's one person being an idiot. Okay. No, this was a group of individuals. Nobody within this group stopped and said, you know, this is really juvenile and stupid. Maybe we should go and support candidates and donate our time to individuals running for office. Was that person shunned? You go away. You go away. We're not going to use. Oh, see, I was going to use your hand as the middle finger photograph, but since you're presenting, you know, actual logic in all of this, you must be shunned now. Shun the non-believer. Shun. While the rest of them sat around, did they draw straws? Who was the lucky person that got to have their hand being the middle finger that got photocopied? And how lazy are you? Not just because of this stunt, but because you just took a picture of one hand, middle finger, and then photocopied it as opposed to taking pictures of all your hands as middle fingers. And I don't understand at what point nobody bothered to stop and go, we're acting like a bunch of children. And I'm sure they'll sit back and justify it and say, oh, the media is talking about it now. And look at all this coverage that we're getting. I mean, maybe that's it. But it really does give you a glimpse into the mind of the broken and brainwashed on the left. And just how juvenile their mentality really is. Let's get back to some of your thoughts from the Blaster Line this morning here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment.
John, you're right. We have hidden the Nazis in the furthest dredges of society and put them in caves and stuff. Oh, except when those Nazis are whining.
Oh, I'm stopping. I didn't realize that they didn't introduce themselves as Eric from Brainerd, and I'm not giving her because I'm convinced that it's a female using a voice disguiser in any sort of extra credit this morning here on the John Justice Show.
Yeah, kids are lame. Middle finger is not what we would have drawn on somebody's car when I was in high school.
That's the video I want. I want the planning meeting. You know, if you harvested the collective brain power of all of the individuals that were involved in this ridiculous stunt, you could probably toast a piece of bread lightly. 612-584-4565. 612-584-4565 if you want to leave a comment on the Blaster Line. James Dickey, lawyer for the Southeastern Legal Foundation and friend of the show, actually had an interesting take on this particular issue that I want to share with you in just a moment. Before I do, though, I want to talk about your health for just a moment. And if you struggled with losing weight and you've gone through the yo-yo dieting, you drop all the pounds only to put more on afterwards, this can all stop today. Through the NutraWave program. It was built for you. It was built for me. I've lost 25 pounds on this program. I can't say enough good things, even though I'm going to try, about what Dr. Bob at NutriWave.us has been able to put together with this amazing program. You see, NutraWave turns on the fat burning and it reignites your energy, and it's done all naturally. There's no pills, there's no shots, there's no excuses. You get to choose the food that you want to eat while you're on the program. And even though it's not like a dedicated part of the program, you end up developing better eating habits. You learn about your body more. I actually wrapped up my diet with NutraWave. I did this program while I was on vacation on the road trip with Kyle, Road Trip 2026, and wrapped it up about a week after that trip and decided, you know what? I was able to keep the weight off over a course of several weeks. So I decided I'm going to do another round of the program. And I've begun my further weight loss journey to finally get down to what my body mass index is supposed to be. Right. More than 31,000 people, just like me, Across the metro, I've tried everything else, and NutraWave is where they got their life back. Right now, there are limited spots available, but you can take advantage of this incredible free offer, a $272 value that includes a Truth Metabolic Scan that tells you what you need to know about your body in order to go on your weight loss journey, and a really effective red light therapy session. I've done this. Requires nothing. You just hang out, watch a little TV while the red light goes and does its work. You've got nothing to lose and everything to gain except the weight. Now, when the slots are gone, they're gone. So call today, 952-260-1965. That's 952-260-1965. Or go to nutriwave.us. Again, that's nutriwave.us. Again, there's no pills, no shots, just results. NutraWave, there really is nothing like it. Results may vary. NutraWave is not a medical treatment. And be sure that you go and consult your physician before starting any weight loss program. All right, let's get back to some of your thoughts from the Blaster line this morning at 612-584-4565. Again, 612-584-4565.
Hey, John, it's really simple. Like so many things on the DFL, DSA side, I'm 99.999% sure a lot of alcohol is involved. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
I don't want to give them that much credit. That they were just sitting around. I mean, that would make a lot of sense. Or they were, as I mentioned at the first hour of the show, which is, if you missed, be sure to check out the podcast available up on the MixLR app when the show is over across all podcast platforms, that more and more individuals are turning to marijuana in order to relax and are avoiding alcohol. So maybe they were just partaking in a little ganja when they all decided to take photographs of a middle finger and tape it on somebody's car. It's even difficult to, it's so stupid.
Has anybody from the police department magnified the photo of the middle finger of the whole hand and tried to find fingerprints or other markings on the hand to identify the individual?
I don't even think Batman could go and pull that off. And I'm pretty sure the way that the hand was photographed, it was the back of the hand. It wasn't even, so it was like facing her, right? I mean, that would have been really special if they had done the palm up a part of it instead of the other way. I mean, at least they had the wherewithal to know, and I'm avoiding flipping everybody off on camera this morning. At least they had the wherewithal to photograph the right side, so it's such a weird thing anyways. The whole middle finger thing is just bizarre to me. It's just, you're showing me a finger. I know this sounds like a Jerry Seinfeld bit, and it's borderline on one, but I actually think it is a Jerry Seinfeld bit now that I mention it. So let's get back to Bob.
They're not too bright. It's kind of like the people that go into Rob's store with a bag over their head, and they cut the eyes in the wrong place and lift up the bag so they can see where they're going.
It is such a stupid bit. Isaac, where do you land on it? Is there a level of concern that you have over this action, or do you think it's more just it needs to be mocked relentlessly?
I don't know. As someone who's been flipped off by their fair share of protesters, it doesn't really get me. The thing that would bug me if I was her would be they know where your house is.
Yeah.
They know which car is yours. That's the only thing that would concern me.
Anonymity is pretty much gone these days.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so easy to find out where anybody lives. I mean, we've had that concern in our household when I've posted, photographs of Monty, and I'm like, you know what? And plenty of people already know where I if they want to find out, they're going to be able to find out.
True.
I go by Justice, but my real last name is Lo Giudice because it's just a lot easier to say, and that's what it means in Italian. So it's not like I'm hiding that fact. So thank you for the comments this morning. Keep them rolling into 612-584-4565. So James Dickey on this particular issue, and I want to provide an update on the flock cameras here in Minnesota. So, but regarding the Leslie Larson vandals, if you can even call them that, they should go. I bet they have. I bet, just as a side note, I bet they can lift fingerprints off of the Scotch tape. I'm assuming they were all wearing gloves. I need to go back and watch the video. But James Dickey said this, though, talking about the concerns around the flock of cameras, which a lot of municipalities across the state have abandoned now. He says that flock cameras in public entry and exit points, like to the neighborhood, if the vandals were driving and not riding their Razor scooters like the children that they are, I added that part, by the way, right? So if they were driving, they actually could have come in handy, right? If kept on public roadways and not aimed at private property, a lot less of a constitutional concern. He posted this online, but he's right. I mean, in terms of the controversies around the flock cameras, if there were flock cameras in the neighborhood and these individuals had driven into the neighborhood, those flock cameras could have gone and captured the license plate. That's not me advocating for flock cameras. I'm just sharing you what friend of the show, lawyer James Dickey with the Southeastern Legal Foundation had to say regarding this. Speaking of flock cameras, though, over the weekend, hundreds of people gathered in downtown Minneapolis on Friday night to protest the flock of cameras, which actually brought about two different issues. So we had the issue of the flock cameras, but this anti-flock takeover were individuals that were all on scooters. They came down to US Bank Stadium and then were riding through downtown. Now, as we mentioned on Friday, on Freedom Friday last week, of which you can go and watch the replay at on Facebook or on YouTube at Center of the American Experiment, they did put in geofencing around the Lime scooters to keep them from traveling through down on the interstates like I-35 like before. Apparently, though, there were still scooters available for this flock of camera protest. The license plate reading company had put up cameras across the country in recent years, but has been criticized for its national and statewide lookup feature, where employees of Flock can look at cameras throughout its network without identifying or asking permission from municipalities. This is according to the AP. Concerns have also been raised amid reports from some using the technology to stalk people and the cameras misidentifying stolen vehicles. Listen, I'll be honest, I have not really come to a firm conclusion on the flock cameras. I certainly do understand the concern that people have for people's privacy, but I don't lean into the concerns over law enforcement abuse of these. I do believe I read this morning that you can look up online whether or not your car has actually been flagged by a flock of camera, if you happen to be curious. But, you know, law enforcement runs your plate already. I mean, as long as you're abiding by the rules of the road, you have less to worry about these cameras. I know that is no argument against constitutional privacy issues by any stretch. I'm just telling you my own personal stance as others go and share their concerns. I figured this whole situation is going to end up remedying itself regardless of my particular opinion on the matter. Advocates say the cameras help police find crime suspects faster, but more and more Minnesota municipalities have announced that they're ending their contracts with Flock in the past few weeks. This is not the first scooter takeover in downtown Minneapolis recently. Of course, as we mentioned, there was another e-scooter event last Saturday that drew concerns from law enforcement after some riders reportedly took to the interstate. But it doesn't seem as if there was a repeat of that particular event from the previous weekend. The John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment House Band, the AI Overlords, and I-35 this morning here on the show. Those songs have no business being that good. I'll wrap up before we close the show out today. I was telling producer Devin about this before he made his exit, and Isaac took over of something that I did over the weekend that, again, I'll share with you regarding the AI overlords. So I happened to I found and was reminded of a few things from my long distance past during the dark years of John Justice. So I decided to have a little fun. So we'll get into that before we wrap up the show today. Let's keep with the theme of criminal behavior, though. A former assistant Anoka County attorney was arrested and charged on Friday with more than 24 crimes connected to an alleged commercial sex trafficking operation that spanned several years. I will never understand an individual who goes through all of the necessary schooling required to reach a level of an assistant Anoka County attorney. I mean, that's no small feat. To devote that much time in your life to become an attorney and end up rising to an assistant Anoka County attorney, and then you decide to deviate into criminal behavior like sex trafficking. I don't understand. I do not get it. Andrea Leigh Sampson, 35 years old. Charged with 13 counts of promoting prostitution, 13 counts of receiving profits from prostitution, after the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and Human Trafficking Task Force uncovered an alleged sex trafficking operation within Minneapolis, Bloomington, Eden Prairie, St. Louis Park, and other surrounding areas. So you've obviously put all your morals aside at that point in time, right? How are you living any sort of life of ease? I mean, clearly you're getting some monetary value out of this, but unless your baseline moral foundation is so corrupt where you just convince yourself you're not doing anything wrong, I just don't know how you live with yourself. How are you comfortable in anything that you're doing in life knowing that you're involved in an operation like this? I suppose after several years, it just becomes, this is my gig now, apart from being an assistant county attorney. According to the charging documents, the operation alleges that numerous individuals, including Sampson, obtained permits for doing that thing with my fingers, commercial sex transactions. Law enforcement later learned that some of Sampson's properties were allegedly used for some of those transactions. That's where our housing shortage problem is coming into play. They're using these homes as dens of debauchery. Photographs of the victims were taken for commercial sex ad postings. In a statement, the Anoka County attorney, Brad Johnson, confirmed that Sampson had been the assistant Anoka County attorney and was working in the office's family law and civil divisions because, of course. But can you imagine? I mean, did she show any proclivity to this in her dealings? Like, was she like known as the horny assistant county attorney in Anoka? You know, like Cooley her. I would be curious. She was probably a very mild-mannered person and nobody had any idea whatsoever. Always the quiet ones. But again, working in the office's family law and civil divisions, but said she was immediately placed on administrative leave when his office was made aware of the investigation in February of 2026. Her last day of employment was March 9th. Like, I mean, like, imagine for a moment lawyer extraordinaire Jeff O'Brien. Not that I want to bring him into the mix, but imagine finding out that Jeff decided that he's had this lucrative, I don't know if it's lucrative, but he's had this incredibly successful career as a lawyer to reach the status of lawyer extraordinaire. And then we find out that he was, you know, involved in some illegal beagle smuggling operation here in Minnesota. I would just be sitting back going, what are you doing? I was trying to make it a little bit lesser than the sex crimes here when it came to it. So beagles just popped into my head for some reason because beagles are awesome. I wouldn't mind having a beagle. I don't know if Artemis will get along with the beagle, but anyway, back to the story. Prosecutors say the phone records show that Sampson and 3 others had numerous communications relating to the commercial sex organization. During the investigation, which began in 2021, wow, took long enough. A lot of hooky talk that probably took place between now and when they actually brought forward the the complaint, right? Let's see. The investigation began in 2021. 13 people were interviewed about the operation. Some said they'd been working with Samson and other suspects since 2020. Well, they've been getting their illegal commercial sex organization Hookita on for a long time, and they provided money from their transaction to the organization. So as the story wraps up here, it's a developing story and will be updated, and we will sit back and patiently await the results of the update on that investigation. We have a email that rolled in, friend of the show, Scott, when we were talking about the middle finger photocopy vandals. He wrote this: "This is the best insult I've heard another sergeant while I was in the Army, and have used it after hearing it. Doing that thing with my fingers. God didn't give you 2 brain cells for fear you might rub them together and start a fire." Thank you, Scott. That's absolutely, it's not bad. It's not bad at all. John.justice at AmericanExperiment.org if you'd like to drop me an email. And of course, 612-584-4565. That's the number for the blaster line if you want to leave us a comment. Before we get over to abolishing ICE is now the official DNC policy, I want to talk just briefly about Eric and his wife, who run and own MiniLeaf and MiniLeaf.com, MINNELEAF.com. And I know a lot of people have reservations about this particular industry, but MiniLeaf is here for you to live a better life through the products that they sell. Made with all natural ingredients, all the products are third-party tested, and any questions that you have about their products are available right there on the website at MINNELEAF.com. And when it comes to me and their desire to have those that use their products live a better life, I'm absolutely a testament to that. Their night gummies have been the game changer for me getting my sleep back on track. As a matter of fact, I had to reach out to Eric when I start to run low, because I take one of those gummies before I go to bed and I get a great night's sleep and I wake up feeling refreshed, ready to make the drive in to talk to you Monday through Friday, 6 until 9 a.m. here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment. They also taste great. There's no bitter aftertaste. And if you're looking for the spooky mini leaf tonics, fantastic alternatives to your typical alcoholic beverages, of course, they have their fun gummies there as well. Really effective triple diamond pain cream that both I've used dealing with some acute pain, and my wife has used as well. Head on over to the website today, MINNELEAF.com, and just see their variety of products that they sell. And for me, if you're looking to get your sleep back on track, absolutely, the night gummies are the game changer. I know I keep saying that word, but it's absolutely true. Head on over to MINNELEAF.com. That's MiniLeaf.com.
If something sounds too good to be true, it usually is. We've heard over and over that wind and solar are the clean and green solution to our energy needs. Power without the downsides of fossil fuels. It sounds great on the surface, but is it true? Let's take a closer look. Every form of energy impacts the environment. Wind and solar are no exception. The only difference? You've probably never been told about their downsides. Wind and solar are both low-power energy sources that require exponentially more wind and solar farms to produce the same amount of power as nuclear or natural gas. This means greater material needs, which lead to unparalleled levels of mining, manufacturing, transportation, and construction, all of which come with huge environmental harms. The land use alone is environmentally devastating. A 1 gigawatt nuclear plant takes about 1.3 square miles. Solar, up to 75 square miles. Wind, up to 3,000 square miles. Powering the U.S. with just wind would require more land than 2 Californias. Then there's the materials. Meeting global net zero targets would require massive amounts of minerals, far more than the world currently produces. This means opening new mines, often in countries with weak environmental standards, dangerous working conditions, and even child labor. The impacts on wildlife are no better. Offshore wind disrupts marine ecosystems. Whales, for example, which rely on echolocation, suffer from hearing impairment and disturbed migration patterns. On land, turbines kill birds and bats, and solar farms destroy habitats. Then there's lifespan. Nuclear and natural gas plants can last 60 to 80 years. Turbines and solar panels, just 20 to 25. They're also not easily recyclable. So multiply the sheer number of units we'd need with their short lifespan, and you have millions of tons of material waste heading for landfills. The truth is, wind and solar aren't the magical solution we've been promised. The costs are real, the trade-offs significant. Low power, high material needs, extensive land use and ecosystem impact. Wind and solar energy production literally do more environmental harm than good. Like we said, if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Learn more at americanexperiment.org/shattered-green-dreams.
It's the John Justice Show presented by American Experiment. And a piece from the Daily Wire this morning. The Democrat National Committee adopted a resolution on Saturday urging congressional Democrats to abolish immigrations and customs enforcement alongside a competing measure calling only for reforms to the agency at the party's summer meeting in Austin, Texas. So the measure, known as Resolution 27 for what it's worth, cleared the DNC's Resolutions Committee on Thursday on a 25-12 vote, with one abstention before heading to the full membership. This is according to reporting from Newsweek. Both resolutions were bundled together into a larger package and approved by the full membership on a unanimous vote. The vote is non-binding and does not change the party platform moving forward. There's a lot of symbolism going on here. The reform measure, sponsored by DNC Chairman Ken Martin, socket wrench that he is. Isaac, you know why I call him? A socket wrench?
Because he has the IQ of one.
No, because he's a tool.
Oh,
there you go. So there you go. Just so you're aware. Ken Martin sponsored the DNC measure, drew broader support in committee than the reform measure. Excuse me. So Ken Martin put together the reform measure because he's a stupid man, but not that dumb. And that drew broader support in the committee than the measure to abolish ICE altogether. The resolution, however, calls on Democrat members of Congress to enact legislation dissolving ICE and winding down the immigration detention system. It seeks to restrict the Department of Homeland Security funding unless certain enforcement activities end, including workplace raids, mass roundups, arrests at courthouses, arrests at ICE check-ins, and actions near schools and houses of worship. It also calls for terminating contracts with private detention providers. Now, Martin said the official party platforms are set every 4 years at the National Convention and argued that Democrats are still united in opposing the administration's enforcement approach, even as they split over what should replace it. They don't know what to replace it with. They don't have an answer, and they do not care. Michelle Johnson, a DMC member from Louisiana who proposed the measure, said Democrats need to take a clear position pointing to the dissolution of ICE's predecessor agency, the Immigrations and Naturalization Service, as precedent, according to the Associated Press. One DNC member, Yvonne Reyes-Chong, voted against it, saying it would win over only part of the party's base while drawing fire from another group of voters, according to the AP. I would strongly suggest that we get into the business of winning races so that we can make the policies that make a difference. Yeah, listen, a broken clock is right twice a day. She knows that when it comes to immigration issues, despite what you see on your social media platforms, despite what you see on TV, of the fraction of Democrats that take to the streets during things like Operation Metro Surge to go and get in the way of lawful law enforcement. This issue of immigration is one that concerns both Democrats and Republicans and has. It's gotten more negativity from the left as of late because the left has done a really good job of vilifying Republicans and convincing individuals who typically would align with the view that if you come into the country here illegally, you need to be held accountable. There is a large number of Democrats on the left that now believe that it's completely okay for people to come into the country illegally because they also understand why Democrats are attempting to do this. And it is to eventually provide status so these individuals can go and vote. And I'll talk more about that in just a moment. So she gets it. But make no mistake, I mean, you look at the DSA party platform, and this is part of it as well. But they have no solution to abolishing ICE, and there doesn't need to be one because it probably isn't going to happen. It makes for a really good talking point for those individuals who have succumbed to the brainwashing and the propaganda of the leftist communist Democrats. Sarah Pierce, director of social policy at the center-left group Third Way, has argued that immigration should not be Democrats' first message to voters, case in point, because it's not their top concern, but that ignoring the issue is also a mistake. Democrats cannot allow Republicans to be the only party offering a vision on immigration, she told Newsweek. Listen, the bottom line on this is would result, okay, if they were to go and abolish ICE, it would be an illegal immigration free-for-all, under which we've already seen the disastrous results from the previous Biden administration. Listen, ICE cannot exist in the minds of many of those individuals on the left, because if it does exist, it weakens their open border lunacy mentality. They want to exploit this and win elections by spreading the propaganda, right, to their base. ICE are akin to Nazis, and eventually, again, legalize millions of individuals who've come into the country here illegally. I think there's a lot of polling that's been done. That's my guess. I talked about this, and I'll sort of bookend the show this morning with Andrew Langer, the president of the Institute for Liberty. We played audio from individuals like Hakeem Jeffries and Ro Khanna earlier this morning, pushing back on defunding of police, pushing back on the Democrat socialists of America. You had multiple, you had Maryland Governor Wes Moore doing this as well. And my guess is they're probably seeing the internal polling that shows, one, their constant anti-ICE, pro-illegal immigration stance isn't resonating like it did before, especially without the on-the-street visuals that we saw during the height of the ICE enforcement that took place. And as we've talked about, in case you missed it, July saw the highest level of arrests and deportations of illegal aliens in the country by Immigrations and Customs Enforcement since Donald Trump started his second term and the ICE operations began. And you probably didn't hear about it until I told you here on the John Justice Show, presented by American Experiment, because there's no on-the-street activity pushing back against the legal operations of ICE. And there isn't any opposition, and there's no Democrats out there promoting this because they know that we're too close to the general election. And as I mentioned, they've probably seen this polling data that shows, hey, we probably shouldn't go there right now because this is not the political winner that we thought it was, even though there is a portion of our base that aligns with our views on this. To that same point, last week, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security spied on Minnesota churches, unions, and libraries and schools during its investigation of individuals and groups opposing the federal government's immigration crackdown. And to that I say good. I'm glad they did. These individuals, even though I say online insurrectionists, I'm not really saying that jokingly. That's what they were. Or excuse me, on the street insurrectionists. That's what a real insurrection looks like. Random citizens taking to the streets to block the lawful law enforcement as they go and attempt to arrest individuals who have warrants for their arrest that are here illegally and have committed other crimes. DHS agents infiltrated protests, obtained financial records, and compiled the dossiers on attendees at informational meetings. The investigations launched under the National Security Presidential Memorandum 7 are alleged to be unfounded and a violation of the citizens' right to privacy. Now, what's interesting about this is when the story broke last week, because I actually had this for Friday's show. Okay, when the story broke last week, this was all over the place. And you had a lot of comments coming from your leftists painting this or using this as a means to go and criticize not just the Trump administration, but ICE and DHS for doing what they did. There's a level of hypocrisy here. We all know what Biden's DOJ did to average everyday Americans. We know of commentary coming from past heads of the Department of Justice relating to labeling parents who are concerned about the curriculum in their schools as terrorists, right? So there's no exclusivity here when it comes to the government looking into the law breaking, or in this case, attempts at insurrection from either party. There's no party exclusivity. But last week when this broke, like everybody was up in arms, the left was freaking out. Well, you know, what a difference a weekend makes. And to the point that I was making earlier on the show, that the issue of immigration and ICE isn't the political winner like it has been in the past. So I have a piece here just briefly. Attorney General Keith Ellison and others say newly released documents of surveillance efforts during Metro Surge are concerning. Oh, they're just concerning now. That is a rather large juxtaposition to the outrage that was being shown by several members of the Democrat Party last week when the news broke. So Attorney General Keith Ellison says he is, okay, in this case, deeply concerned. Not just concerned, but he's deeply concerned, okay, about the information in the documents released. He wants to know more about how federal agents were tracking various groups here in Minnesota to see if the government broke the law. He says, if those things are true, I think there very well could be some violations of our constitutional rights. You see, Thief Ellison is a hack, but he's no dummy. And he knows that what the federal government was doing was probably passing legal muster. So he's going to make his comments. He's going to try to paint them in a negative light, but he's more than likely well aware that the Trump administration, DHS, and Homeland Security had every right to go and do what it is that they were doing. The defense attorney who first uncovered the documents is also looking into more information, filing a motion for more documents and insight into how his client, he had a client, was being tracked by the government and whether the charges against him should be dropped. Again, on the street insurrectionists. So on Friday afternoon, a federal judge agreed with the defense attorney in his case, and the federal government will respond or must respond to their request for more information by Friday, August 21st. Kara Levin, who did the story that I'm working off of, also reached out to the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Department of Justice for an official comment, but as of Friday has not received a response. So we should be speaking with, we're trying to work it out, Minnesota U.S. Attorney Dan Rosen. Hopefully he'll be on the show this week, and this is definitely an issue that I will bring up with Dan, provided that we can get him on the show later on this week. So before we wrap things up today, let's go back to the Blaster line at 612-584-4565 and hear what you have to say on this issue.
Hey, John. Thanks for clarifying why Ken Martin's called a socket wrench. I always thought it was because he's around a bunch of nuts that need to be wound up. So thanks for sharing. Have a great day. Bye.
And thank you for leaving us a blast this morning here on the John Justice Show. Tomorrow, an item that should probably be added to the AmericanExperiment.org list of the ways in which Minnesota is on the wrong track. Minnesotans know that our state isn't doing well. Some 68% of Minnesotans agree with this. Kids in Mississippi can read better than kids in Minnesota. Minnesota is now a below average state economically. 55% of Minnesota students can't do math at a grade level. Minnesota taxes the small businesses more than any other state. And Minnesota's government let fraudsters steal over $9 billion. This should probably be on the list as well. The 2023 trifecta blew so much money so fast that the state government couldn't keep track of it. It's a piece last week from a policy fellow, John Phelan, here at American Experiment, and something that we will cover on tomorrow's show. Before I wrap things up today, I was telling Isaac a moment ago. So we have the AI overlords, the John Justice Show house band. So over the weekend, I found I have a binder, and it's filled with, I'll call them musings. At the time, I probably would have referred to them as poetry.
Oh, boy.
Back from the dark years of my early 20s, okay? And it's just, I've kept it. I don't know why. I was talking with Devin about it before the show started. I've had thoughts of maybe I'll turn this into some sort of book of poetry, and I'll use my real name, and maybe it can be helpful to somebody, right? So over the weekend, I was like, well, I wonder what would happen if I plug these into the Suna app, the Suno app, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I did that.
Yes.
And as we've been talking about when it comes to the AI overlords in the house band, those songs have no business being as good as they are.
Who needs clean drinking water when we can hear John's poetry come to life?
So I don't have any examples to share with you, and I'll have to be convinced in order to go in and share them. I won't lie. I do have some of them on my phone. I did play them, some of them for my family, but I'm not kidding. These songs, they had no business being as good as they are. So we'll maybe see if this ends up becoming a reoccurring thing on the show. So with that, that wraps up Monday's show here, presented by American Experiment. If you missed any portion of today's broadcast, be sure to check out the podcast. That'll be posted shortly by producer Isaac up on the Mixlr app and across all podcast platforms. You can watch a replay of the show as well. It'll be up on Rumble later on this morning, also on Facebook and YouTube at Center of the American Experiment. And be sure to carve out time to join us tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your Monday. And again, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning starting at 6 a.m. We'll talk with David Gartenstein-Ross, your AI analyst and expert, getting the latest on artificial intelligence. And if you have any questions for David, you can get those in early. john.justice@americanexperiment.org, or leave us a blast at 612-584-4565. So talk to you guys tomorrow morning. God bless. Talk to you then. Bye.
He speaks through static waves at dawn, a voice that lingers when night is gone. Twin cities hum with stories spun. John Justice rides the rising sun.